to happen, but he was complaining at a party last night. It's not good.
Did I do something? Do I need to?
Probably put like on the.
There we go.
If you remember that. So we don't have any of those things, but we could. Probably will. Yes. We've got budget full, so.
We have four. This public hearing, this budget hearing to order on this first Monday of August, August 5th, 2024. Before we get started, let's have a moment of silence. I know Shannon's not here because his wife's having surgery, and I don't know the particulars, don't need to, but if we just start with a moment of prayer, I think that's always a good start. Amen. Thank you. Thanks everybody who's here today. It shows interest, which is good. We're going to welcome Addie Rooker from Wagner, Irwin and Shealy. She's got a massive report they've been working on for months. Maybe the department heads had meetings, I believe, with her earlier in the year. We received the draft initial report from her, the council, and Stephanie did last Wednesday, and an update, I think, on Saturday. She asked us to not share it because she wanted to go over it. Lots of information, lots of explanations she wanted to share so there's not misinterpretation or misunderstanding. The decisions the council made last Thursday in the public hearing regarding LITs was the primary focus was to have monies to finally be able to do significant raises because the raises we have been giving have not kept up with the external market, which she'll probably explain some of those details. The results of the raises that we hope to give will give most people between 5% and 15% raise to get very close to external market. And that would result in most cases, a 20 to 45% increase between 2018 and 2025 next year. Our research shows the cumulative raises from 2011 to 2018 averaged 10%. We intend to use the WIS report as a basis for 2025 compensation and beyond. At 10:30, we start budget hearings, starting with the clerk, followed by Memorial Park, and finally the coroner. Any questions from the council? Hi, Kyle, you snuck in on me. You got your coffee, you're ready to go. Questions? If not, I'd like to introduce Addie Rooker. I think you passed out the embargoed report, so it's no longer embargoed, and the floor is yours. And thank you so much for the massive work that you and your organization has done for us through the years, but especially this year.
Thanks, Kenan, and thanks for having me today. Again, I'm Addie Rooker, Principal Consultant with Wagner, Irwin and Shealy. I've been with the firm since 2001 and have been working with Henry County since I started with the firm. So today I'd like to walk you through the report, hit the highlights, and then I'll walk you through the pay plans, what you have. There are quite a few changes from what you've had in the past, and then I will be glad to answer questions that you have. And first of all, I would like to thank all of the department heads and Stephanie in the auditor's office who helped coordinate all the information. Everyone's very cooperative. I know I've had multiple calls with department heads back and forth to fine tune things. So everyone was very cooperative and that really helped the project be successful, I think. So this project, you've had a job classification and compensation system in place for many years, but it's been a long time since it has been updated. So this project included reviewing all of the existing job descriptions and updating those, and then preparing any new job descriptions if necessary. There were several proposed positions that departments had, so we prepared job descriptions for those. So the council has those positions if their positions are approved going forward. We examined the Fair Labor Standards Act analysis, conducting and designated positions as excluded, exempt, or non-exempt under the federal, state wage and hour laws. So there were some changes to that law, so we took a close examination, and I'll talk more about that later on. In addition to updating the job descriptions, we reviewed and refactored all of the positions according to the factor evaluation system using the guide charts for each job category. And then we conducted an external salary analysis comparing the county's positions to the external market, and then prepared a report of findings for the council. So designing a new pay plan here, this is not so much new, it's just restructured, but under Indiana Code 36-2-5-3, the council is granted the power for fixing the number of officers, deputies, and employees, describing, classifying positions and services, adopting schedules of compensation, and hiring or contracting with persons to assist with such services. And that's what you've done here under this code with your classification system. So a little background on the factor evaluation system. This is the system that we use here for Henry County to classify the positions. This is a job classification system that was developed by the Department of Labor, and it's been implemented in a lot of the state and local governments here throughout the United States and in Indiana. Basically, it sorts positions into job categories, and so you're only comparing like jobs to each other. So we're not comparing a truck driver to a deputy in the auditor's office. They're completely different jobs, have different responsibilities, different markets that they're competing with. So those jobs are compared separately. So basically for the procedures for installing the factor evaluation system includes collecting job information, writing job descriptions, classifying those, determining factor evaluations, and then conducting the wage analysis. So here, again, we met with all the departments. There were multiple consultants that met in person, for the most part, a few over the phone, and getting job information and listening to the department heads and elected officials about any concerns that they may have. And then we use that information and all the changes in the job descriptions to update those. So each job description includes job requirements, skills and knowledge, difficulty of work, responsibility, personal work relationships, physical effort, and then the working conditions or work environment. And the job descriptions, not only are they useful for the job classification and compensation, but they also establish the essential functions under the Americans with Disabilities Act. They help you establish the minimum requirements for hiring new employees. They set standards for training, promotion, other conditions of employment, and they help verify and document compliance with various government regulations, including the Fair Labor Standards Act, the Family Medical Leave, OSHA, and the Equal Pay Act. And then they also set factors on which job performance can be measured as well within the department. So the job categories that are used here in Henry County include the COMET group, which is the Computer Office Machine Operation Technicians. So these are, these positions usually require on-the-job training, may require a 2-year degree or some technical training. They're usually support positions that you'll find in the county departments that are supporting other PAT positions or department heads, elected officials. Some of these include administrative assistant, deputy clerk, bookkeeper, legal secretary, community health worker, and court reporter are just a few examples. The labor trades and crafts, LTC group, this primarily exists positions in the highway department. So these are positions that are skilled and unskilled, require manual labor, physical strain and effort. Examples here include head cook, labor, groundskeeper, building maintenance, truck driver, mechanic, crew leader, and assistant superintendent. The pole category, this is the protective occupations law enforcement. And so in the past, you have had one category of pole groups. And these are positions that are involved in protecting life and property, maintaining order, responding to emergencies, and supervising those type of functions. And so here, this time, we've restructured this group, and we'll go into a little more detail into 4 subgroups. So now we will have merit pole, civilian pole, E911 pole, and EMS pole. So those positions include your merit deputy, corporal, sergeant, captain, park rangers, field officers, correctional officers, assistant jail commander, dispatchers, paramedics, and EMTs. The next job category is the PAT group, Professional Administrative Technological. These positions usually require a bachelor degree or equivalent or some technical training, certifications, specialty training of some sort. Positions in this sample titles include the election supervisor, building inspector, zoning administrator, environmental health specialist, public health nurse, HR and payroll manager, and the GIS administrator. The next group is the executives, and this is a new job category for Henry County. So these positions are held primarily by those that are planning, directing, and implementing major programs. So these are some department head level positions, including the EMA director, the health administrator, community corrections executive director, E911 director and systems administrator, and the highway superintendent. And then we have special occupations. We did try to limit the number of those positions this time around, but we still have several positions that are there for various reasons, either special terms and conditions or rules that are governing the compensation, like the probation schedule. So there are the SO positions include deputy coroners, deputy prosecutors, deputy public defenders, your chief deputies, matron, health officer, your engineer, licensed clinician, and your probation officers. So after all the job descriptions were updated, they were factored by an internal factoring team at our firm, where there's a different factor guide chart for each job category. And so the jobs are weighted using the different factors, including job requirements, difficulty of work, responsibility, personal work relationships, and the environment. And these points are different by category. So 300 points in LTC is not the same as 300 points in PAT or COMET. You get there in different ways. For example, in the LTC group, they're more heavily weighted for the physical effort and work environment. Whereas in PAT and COMET, they're not generally required to do heavy lifting, so that's a lower factor level, weighted less there in those positions. And then for the executive positions, the guide charts, those factors are a little different. They include knowledge and skills, impact, complexity and difficulty, and then work relationships. So all the jobs end up with a total factor point number, and then jobs that are very close in total points end up classified into a classification level. And this will ensure that there's pay equity among like classified positions. So on pages 8 and 9, we have the different classification levels that are spelled out by the job category. And you will see the different breakouts for all the polls, and you also see these on the pay plans. On page 10, this is where we start with the internal findings and recommendations. So again, we did quite a bit of restructure here. The poll category was the major restructure, and we've broke those jobs down again into 4 subgroups, and then have developed a separate pay plan for each group. So in the past, where you've had one consolidated poll group that encompasses positions from the sheriff's department, jail, 911, EMS, community corrections, parks, and the prosecutor's office, we have split those out a little more so that we can compare those markets and to be more comparing like jobs to each other. The work hours and the pay varied drastically for these positions, so was one of the driving factors for doing so. In the LTC category, there are currently 5 classification levels. Your LTC 1 was an empty class. So we restructured that job category to eliminate the empty class. And then we created a separate classification for the crew leaders and the highway assistant superintendent. So we actually ended up with 6 classification levels there for the LTC group. In the comic job category, there were 5 classification levels currently. Level 1 was an empty class, meaning there were no positions there. And so we restructured that into 4 classification levels for the comic group. In the PAT category, there are currently 4 classification levels. And then as looking at all the jobs and refactoring, there were quite a few jobs that were moved into PAT. So the PATs were restructured a little bit, but they still ended up with the 4 classification levels, but the composition of positions in PAT does look different. And then we have the new exec category that has the department head level positions, and then we have the SO category. So over the years, many positions have been just kind of moved over into SO for various reasons. So part of this update was to try to place as many jobs back into the classification system. And so we looked at each and every SO position and evaluated them. And as a result, we are recommending to move 11 positions from SO back into the classification system in one of the various job categories. On page 11, another finding was we found instances of part-time positions not being paid the same rate as employees that are performing the full-time equivalent job. So examples were the part-time E911 dispatcher, currently being paid $16.50 per hour, and the full-time equivalent being paid $21.84 an hour. The Parks Department, the groundskeeper building maintenance position is paid $13.50 an hour, and the full-time equivalent was paid $20.06 an hour. And in the community corrections, the part-time field officer is paid $15.75 an hour, and the full-time equivalent is paid $20.99 an hour. So we recommended here, the recommendation is that the part-time positions be compensated at the same pay rate as the full-time equivalent positions. They're performing the same work, they're just working less hours. Number 3 here is a finding in the E911 communications department. We developed a tiered pay and are recommending a pay stipend here for positions. So in the E911 department for the dispatchers, we've created 2 levels of pay for the dispatchers. So an entry level pay at level 1. And then once the dispatchers obtain the certifications required, I believe that I think there's 4 different ones that they have to obtain. Then they are advanced to level 2 and receive a pay adjustment there at that level. In addition, there are positions, or employees serving as IDAX coordinators and certified training officers in that department. And the director wanted to have the flexibility to be able to assign that to different individuals. And so we didn't really create a separate job or classification, but are recommending that employees that are assigned to those additional duties and responsibilities receive a stipend in the amount of $1,500 for taking on those additional duties and responsibilities. We found, number 4, found pay compression issues among the comment positions, the chief deputies in the SO category, and elected officials. So the currently elected officials, we found that we're lagging the market, which is causing pay compression with the chief deputies because they were tied closely in pay with the elected officials. And then it was causing pay compression with the positions in the comment group that they are, the chief deputies were supervising, and trying to preserve that rank structure within those elected offices. So we have developed we're recommending that the council look at paying the elected officials at the average salary of the external market. And then we provided an option for paying the chief deputies at 85% of the elected officials' salary. And that would help relieve some of that pay compression for those positions. On page 12, number 5, so just looking at the positions, there's longevity pay. The county currently provides longevity pay to county employees, and I understand that was just increased this past year, the amount with a starting after 3 years and capped at 15 years or $2,500. Sheriff's Department has something different. It's matrix pay, and from my understanding, they begin after 5 years, and currently the 2024 amounts for the officers that are receiving ranged from $2,500 to $12,500. And this matrix pay is embedded in the merit officer's salaries. It's not listed separately on the salary ordinance like it is for the longevity is for the other employees. So as a result of embedding this matrix pay, the base salaries were not clearly identifiable, which makes it difficult to compare base salaries to the external market, other sheriff department base salaries. So what I'll show you here on the pay plans, we did separate that out and listed the base pay, the matrix pay, and then a total salary. So we can compare the base salaries to base salaries. And while the matrix pay has been working well for, this method of pay, just to keep in mind, so for right now, the chief deputy, for example, the base pay is $59,661, and then the position receives $12,500 for matrix pay for the years of service this employee's been with the county, with a total salary of $72,161. So this works well with that lower base and then promoting from within the department. But if the sheriff or a future sheriff were to appoint a chief deputy from the outside, that base pay of $59,000 would not be sufficient for the rank structure of that department. So I wanted to bring that to the attention of the council so you can keep that in mind for the future in setting pay. And then just a general finding, and I'm sure this won't be a surprise to many of you, but during our department head interviews, multiple departments did report high turnover or difficulty in recruiting and retaining employees. And so examples included deputy clerks, truck drivers, correctional officers, dispatchers, legal secretaries, deputy public defenders, deputy prosecutors, and the groundskeeping, building maintenance, part-time employees. So this is a trend that other, counties that we work with are experiencing as well. So similar positions, especially, the truck drivers and the correctional officers, I think tend to be right now, the two higher ones, or common ones that most departments or counties are experiencing. But just wanted to make sure that we brought that to the attention since many of the department heads had brought up that concern. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we did conduct a Fair Labor Standards Act analysis of all the county positions. And so on each job description, there is a listing, as well as on the pay plans, of our recommendation for the FLSA status. So employees holding excluded positions, so these are positions that include elected officials, their policymaking appointees, personal staff, legal advisors. These positions are not covered by the FLSA as in regards to pay and overtime pay, not in regards to following other policies. And they're not eligible or entitled to receive overtime compensation or comp time. Employees holding exempt positions must meet at least one of the tests under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and are excluded from the provisions of federal and state wage and hour laws, and are not required or not entitled to or required to receive monetary overtime or comp time. And then employees that are non-exempt positions, which are the majority of your positions, whether they're paid hourly or salary, they are entitled to overtime pay or comp time after working 40 hours in a work week. So again, to be exempt, the positions must meet one of the tests under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And on pages 13 and 14, we spelled those out. I know this doesn't always get touched on, so I wanted to make sure that the council was educated on what those tests were. The Department of Labor did issue a new rule back in April of this year. So in order to be exempt, the position must be paid on a salary, and it must meet one of the duties tests, the executive, professional, or administrative. And what they have done prior to July, the salary threshold to be exempt was $35,568. Effective July 1st of this year, the Department of Labor raised that threshold to $43,888. So as of July 1, any position that any exempt position must be paid at least that amount to maintain that exempt status. And then in January 1, 2025, the salary threshold jumps up to $58,656. And so any position that is, any exempt position that you want to maintain exempt would have to be paid that salary to maintain that exempt status. So far, we expect challenges to that rule, but we haven't, so far this is what's in place for January. So what we've listed out what we're recommending to be excluded at the bottom of page 14. Elected officials, chief deputy, a matron, a health officer. And then on page 15, the first half of the page are the positions that we're recommending to be exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And then at the bottom of page 15, this is the list from the exempt list that meet one of the tests for exemption, but fall below the January 1st threshold of $58,656. So you have several positions here that will be affected by that. So these are recommended to be looked at, individually on a case-by-case basis by the council to determine whether those positions will remain where they're currently compensated and will convert to non-exempt, or whether the threshold will be raised to the $58,656 to maintain the exempt status. Some of these positions, yeah, go ahead.
These salaries right here are the current pay, not the recommended pay. And then we have
Correct.
a lot
So some of those may be,
solve
right. There still may be some depending on, and I used the current salary because I wasn't sure what adjustments would be made. But that way you could look at these and see which ones, when you're considering making pay adjustments, to keep this in mind of those thresholds. And some of these positions, keep in mind that it may not work a lot of overtime, so converting them to non-exempt if they're below the threshold would not have a major impact on your overtime or comp time budgets. However, other positions would be more likely to work overtime and would be more pay beneficial to the county to just increase that threshold, so you're not paying the overtime.
One of- Pardon me. One of the lowest ones you list on the bottom of page 15 is park superintendent. That position gets a home, a house to live in. Is there any adjustment or consideration for that fact, which is different than every other employee in the county?
Sure, we addressed this, I think, back in 2022. And I believe I had pulled that information somewhere here. And so there is with that being a unique job, you can assign a fair market value to the residents, and or vehicle as part of their total compensation and reduce the salary so that so you're collecting. So let's say the salary is, what you're looking at is you want total compensation at 50,000. Then whatever the fair market value, you deduct that from their salary and the fair market value of the vehicle to come up with what the remaining salary would be owed to that employee.
We have categories of vehicles. We have vehicles that are used, as far as I know, primarily to do the work job during the day as part of their work duties. Then we have some that are allowed to take home. How do you differentiate those, or do you?
We would have to look at the uses, and IRS is pretty clear on like which ones are would be considered more personal vehicles. So we'd have to look at closely at what that employee is using the vehicle for, how often, are they allowed to use it for personal business? So we'd have to look at that and to see if it's actually, how that's working.
So I'm not part of the job classification committee or whatever it's going to be called moving forward. So that's something we would work with you, just like we asked for maybe reclassification of a job, that you could assist with that, or.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk through some things and some options there with that position. Cause it's unique. It's different than, there's no other position in the county that's required to live on site to do the job.
Okay, so that position is definitely an exception to the general rule for everyone else because of the home, for example.
Yes, but so the job itself was factored based on the job duties, responsibilities, just like others.
Right.
But then if you add those terms and conditions, we could look at the compensation differently, but where we've ranked the job and classified the job is based on the duties and requirements in comparison to other similar positions in that PAC category.
Okay. So that's consistent across the board, but the things that may not be consistent that we need to look in are like the vehicle, whether it's for private or business use, the home, those kind of
Right.
things, we need to maybe take a second look at.
Yeah. And then one last note on the FLSA, the FLSA salary threshold requirements do not apply to excluded positions. So they would not apply to, the chief deputies, the matron, the health officer, or the elected officials. Just to make that clear.
So what are the other implications of considering someone excluded? And people have mentioned things as far as, what are the other implications of considering someone excluded? Are there other benefits lost other than this wage requirement?
As far as excluded, so the excluded is limited to very few positions by statute of being more of a political appointment. And so that political appointment basically is that the elected official, you're clearly identifying positions that can be replaced purely on political terms. So if a new auditor comes in, the chief deputy can be replaced for any reason, and it's not protected. The other positions in the auditor's office, that the auditor can't just terminate because of political reasons or anything. They have to have some other cause to terminate those positions. So that's why those are identified as excluded, and are listed that way. And each job description has that statement in those jobs, so it's very transparent.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
One of the things that you mentioned is that your recommendation moving forward is chief deputies making 85% of the elected official that they're, or the department head that they're working under. Right now, we've tried to, I think we're at 81 to 85. So we're talking about making that consistent.
Right.
And it looks like the chief deputy of the sheriff's department was looked at separately as a separate unit with a separate recommended rate,
Yes.
not
And-
necessarily 85%.
Right, I was gonna address that when I got to the pay plans, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, it's easier to show you once you see it.
Sure.
So on page 16, this has the summary of the external, salary analysis as far as we conducted the salary survey using benchmark positions for each job category. So the salary data represents pay for similar, like positions within the external market. So the counties and the cities and the sources are listed here on page 16. An external salary line was developed for each job category. So that's basically a regression of all the salary data that was collected, from all the entities and survey data. And then, for the elected officials and positions in the SO job categories, except for the, chief deputies, the chief deputies were direct job matched to the, market. So as you'll see coming up here soon, when I get to the pay plans, we developed an external midpoint salary, for each of the positions, and then developed a high and low range, off of that midpoint. So the external midpoint is the mean or average pay rate for jobs surveyed in the external market. And then we were able to establish a range off of that market. So when you see that external midpoint, there are positions in the market being paid more, there are positions in the market being paid less. So that midpoint is that external pay line, of best fit for the jobs based on the regression of the factor points and the salaries for those like positions. So just things to consider as elements of a pay structure, internal pay equity. That's looking at, the pay relationship among like classified jobs. Most of your jobs were already internally aligned for the most part because you've had a system in place. So we didn't have to do a separate internal analysis there. The external pay equity, what's the relationship to the external market? Where do we want our employees to be paid in relationship to the external market? And what do we need to pay these employees to attract and retain qualified employees? Longevity pay, rewards employees for their tenure with the county. You already have that in place. Technical pay, can be a supplemental stipend, that's linked to technical specialty. That's what we've proposed in the E911 department for those IDAX coordinators and trainers. And then performance pay is another option, a little more difficult to implement in the county, but it's pay linked to employee performance. Now, page 18, maintaining the job classification and compensation system. So again, you've had this system in place since 1986. The county has an adopted maintenance plan. You have a personnel committee or a job classification committee that currently reviews, and there's a process for that. So we have just been operating under that maintenance plan. If there's any need to update that, we'll be glad to review that with you, and we can make any changes necessary. But each year we assist the county with any reclassifications, job description updates, questions on FLSA status. And then each year outside of this year, we usually just give you a market update for the categories. So the next steps for the council would be to adopt the updated job descriptions by ordinance. You have all of them updated. They have new dates. Some of them have new job titles that accurately reflect what they're currently doing. So I have a copy of that for you. and then also adopting the updated factor evaluation system itself. So there are new job categories, there are new classification assignments. We have kind of renamed the classification levels that you'll see here. So we have an ordinance for the council to adopt that. I will be leaving with Stephanie today the copies of the job descriptions. There is a flash drive with electronic copies, and then there are folders that, for each department with hard copies that Stephanie can distribute, when she gets a chance to do that. So basically, in conclusion, you have, I want to walk you through the pay plans, but this information is meant to be a tool, a guide for the council to use in making pay adjustments, going forward. Any questions on the report before moving forward with the pay plans?
Council?
I don't.
Jose?
Well, I would like to start with the LTC job category. All right, so like I said earlier, when I was walking through the report, currently you have 5 classification levels. And you can see, I'll just kind of walk you through how this is set up. Going across the top, we have the department position, the current job classification level, the proposed classification level, the recommended FLSA status, the annual work hours for the position, the 2024 annual pay, the hourly rate, and then the next 6 columns include the external salary analysis. So in the middle, there is the external midpoint salary and the hourly rate. So the hourly rate for each classification level is the same. And then the salary has been adjusted based on the annual hours worked for the position. And then what we've developed is the external low salary and external high, 10% below. The midpoint is how we set the external low, and then 10% above the external midpoint is the external high. And then the last 2 columns to the right show the cost to move the position to the external low salary, and then the cost to move the position to the external midpoint salary. So if we're looking at LTCA, for the groundskeeper building maintenance, those positions were currently classified LTC 2. We have shifted from the numbers into letters to try to just go with the whole reclassification, get away from that. And so these will now recommended to be LTCAs. And we have shown the factor points for each level. So LTCA is 295 points and below. So we ended up with 6 LTC classification levels. There are a total of 34 LTC positions, including 2 proposed positions. And the proposed positions are listed, one in LTC B for the parks, the grounds foreman. And then in LTCE for the highway, it's the shop foreman. So again, we prepared a job description and have classified these positions. So if a council were to approve these positions for the 2025 budget, then you already have a job description and a classification and a pay range for these positions. Previously, the mechanics and the crew leaders in the highway department were classified together. So we have separated those into 2 separate classification levels in D and E, and then we reclassified the assistant highway superintendent from SO into the highest LTC level. So that is new. Currently, 15 LTC positions are compensated at or above the external low salary. And overall, those LTC positions are only behind lagged the external low by 2.13%. And then to move all the positions to the external midpoint for LTC would be a 12.43% increase. Any questions there on the LTCs? Okay. All right, next I would like to look at the merit polls. This group, again, was one of the restructured groups. We created a subgroup for the sheriff merit officers, and have created 5 classification levels. And going across, this one looks a little different than the LTCs. So we have the department, the position, the current job classification, and that classification was from the one poll group that existed previously. The proposed job classification, the FLSA status, work hours, and then we have the 2024 base pay. So we've separated out the matrix pay. So we've listed the base pay, the 2024 matrix pay if they receive it, and then the 2024 total pay. And then the next 3 columns are the external analysis with the external midpoint, low and high salaries, and then the cost to move those positions to either the external low or the external midpoint. And we did calculate the cost to move those positions using the 2024 base salary. So we're comparing base salary to base salary. And all the positions were factored, but they do follow the rank structure of the department. There are 2 proposed ranks that don't currently exist, and that is at Merit Poll B. We have a corporal rank and developed a job description for that. And then we've developed 2 lieutenant positions at Merit Poll D, lieutenant detective and a lieutenant for the patrol division. And again, you have job descriptions and a classification for those positions if those are approved going forward. Let's see. Currently, there's a minimal rank differential between the base pays of the ranks. So looking at the external data, that did result in some wider rank differentials moving from each of the ranks. So overall, the merit poll positions were 11.38% below the external low salary based on the base salary, and then 23.76% below the external midpoint when using the base salary calculation. Any questions here on the merit polls? Okay. All right, next would be the civilian polls. So here we have 5 classification levels for civilian poll. There are 47 positions in civilian poll. I do not believe there were any proposed positions here. 4 civilian poll positions are at or above the external low salary. And overall, the positions were within 6.28% of the external low. One change we did make for the civilian polls, currently the assistant jail commander and the jail commander were classified at the same classification level. Under the current one group of polls, there wasn't really room to move that and separate those positions, so we were able to do that here in the civilian polls. So we have separated those into separate job categories, separate classification levels. And the pay recommendations are listed here for those. And we did move the recommending that the courthouse positions, courthouse security, and I believe there's a courthouse security supervisor, those positions were recommended to be reclassified from the SO category into the civilian poll B and civilian poll C levels. Any questions on the civilian polls? Okay. All right, next we have the E911 poll. So here are three classification levels for E911, a total of 23 E911 poll positions, including one proposed position, and that is for deputy director. And I've listed that at the E911 poll C level. And again, we've created two-tier compensation levels for the dispatchers, as I mentioned in the report. And level 2 dispatcher is set at $1,000 above level 1. And so the pay rates have been adjusted for that with the assignments of those. And then we have, with the asterisks here, we have the positions, employees that are assigned to either the IDAX coordinator or the training officer, additional duties. So those, again, positions are recommended to receive a stipend of $1,500 for those additional responsibilities. Overall, the full-time positions are fairly competitive with the external market. They're lagging the external low by 1.95%. But again, those part-time dispatcher positions, there is a pay discrepancy there for those positions doing the same work as the full-time equivalents. Any questions on the E911 poll? Okay. All right, next it would be the EMS poll. So this restructure was actually one of the first of the polls, and we did this initially back in December of 2023. And so we have updated it slightly, but the department has proposed 3 full-time positions for 2025. And that would be the EMTB, the EMT Advance, and the paramedic. And so we have the external midpoint and the low and high for these positions. And then the cost basically on your current 2 full-time positions to implement those positions. Depending, the cost for the new positions would be depending on how many and what the pay is set at. Any questions here on the EMS poll?
On your external market, were these compared with other agencies that did both BLS and ALS? Or was this, how was it compared to the external market?
So for this one, we had other counties that had the EMS departments. And then as well as some of the private sector data from some of the local hospitals
Okay.
that were performing similar functions for paramedic and EMT. All right, the next group would be the Comet group. And I believe this is one of your largest groups here. We have 4 Comet classification levels and a total of 58 Comet positions, including 2 proposed positions, both in the health department. We have one at Comet B, proposed position for certified medical assistant. And then the other is at Comet C for the administrative assistant bookkeeper. So again, with the Comet positions, we did have 5 classification levels. We restructured the Comet 1 was, Comet 1 level was empty. And so we have restructured it with the 4 levels. And overall, the Comet positions are 8.8% below the external low salary and then 20.89% below the external midpoint. I don't think there were any other major changes to the Comet positions. Any questions there with the comments?
A lot of them.
There are a lot of them.
Question?
All right, the next group would be the PAT category. We ended up with 4 PAT classification levels. There are a total of 34 PAT positions, including 3 proposed positions in the health department. Those proposed positions are the environmental health specialist at PAT B, the health educator at PAT C, and then the public health coordinator, emergency preparedness coordinator at PAT C as well. And here you can see from, there were several positions that were moved from the SO category and restructured here. So we've reassigned those PAT assignments, levels. There are 7 PAT positions compensated at or above the external low salary. Overall, the PAT positions fell below 4.3 below the external low salary. Any questions here on the PAT group?
It's not.
All right. The next group is the executives. And again, this is the new job category for Henry County. We had 3 classification levels with 5 positions. Your elected officials, of course, are department heads, but they're in a separate group. But here we have 5 positions, and we've developed an external midpoint for this group and then an external salary range for the executive positions. And the emergency management position, we recommended right now, since it's part-time, to be non-exempt. Obviously, doesn't meet the salary threshold, so that position is currently part-time and non-exempt. The rest of the positions are recommended to be exempt. So the cost to move those, or the percent increase to move those positions to the low, was 8.2%. And then to move the executive positions to the midpoint was 19.3%.
And again, your external low is 10% below midpoint or below market,
Yes.
or?
No, yeah,
that the
it's
same?
below midpoint. And the reason it looks a little different is, the range would give the council some flexibility of setting pay for those positions. So just to give, we address that a little bit differently, but yeah, it's set very similar manner. Okay, and then the next group would be your special occupations. We have kind of several different pages for SO, but the first one should have your engineer, health officer, matron on it. So here what we've done, we have the external midpoint salary or pay rate, and then an external pay range. There's some nuances here. We have a few that are part-time. So for the engineer, we've listed an hourly rate. This is unique. Normally an engineer would be paid a salary, but for the hours that working, we've been assigned an hourly rate. So we've listed that range. And then the coroner deputies, they are paid per call. So we have showed what the market pays that are other counties that are paying per call. We've listed that range. And then the other positions have been direct job matched. The probate commissioner is another part-time, but we compared it to other part-time positions as well. Any questions there on these SOs?
Yes, no.
I just am looking at the coroner, the per call, it's 75 to 150 per call with the external pay range. We're very much on the low end of that.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
It's not a question, it was just a comment, looking at the coroner deputy. And the hourly rate that we pay is 80 and the external pay range is 75 to 150. I was just remarking about us being on the low end of that.
Right. But you're within the range of what others are paying, but yes, you're on the low end of that.
which I find very typical across the board.
But being within the range is better than being below the range. And the next group would be the SO attorneys. So these include the public defender and, deputy public defenders and the deputy prosecutors. We've listed out so a couple years ago, we shifted to a tier pay proposal for these positions. So we have the different levels, misdemeanor and level 6, felony level, and supervisory level, and have established an external market midpoint and a salary range for those levels. And then for the full-time positions, we've assigned those and cost those out. So several of the positions here are either state-paid positions or are working less than the full-time schedule, which is why those have not been costed out. And then we are proposing that, the level assignments and level criteria ultimately should be determined by the prosecutor and the chief public defender. Any questions here with this group?
My comment to the council on the public defender, there's a public defender organization, council in the state that'll reimburse up to 40%. We're one of the few counties that have not tapped that. If it is approved to put in these ones that are carroted, the 30 hours per week, all way below what the external market is, we may want to once again consider getting into that 40% reimbursement, which we have not. I know there's history, just a discussion.
Right, right. The next SO group would be the SO probation. And again, as you know, these positions are required to follow, be paid at least the minimum salary according to the Indiana Judicial Conference salary schedule for probation officers. So what we've listed here for you today is their current 2024 pay, and then what the adjustment would be according to the mandated schedule and the cost to that. So that schedule was increased by 3%. So the cost to move those positions ended up being the 2.8%. And I provided a copy of the minimum salary schedule for the council. And then also there should be a page in there from a salary study that was completed by the Probation Officers Professional Association of Indiana. It should look something like this. Hopefully you have that in there. If not, I'll make sure you get it. Yes, yes. So this was a salary study that was conducted in May of this year by this group. And I just wanted the council to be aware. I know that they're pushing for this to get passed and to actually into the mandated schedule. And so they've surveyed and what actual they're being paid. And what I like about it is that they have finally recognized the different work hours. Currently, the mandated schedule, a county has to pay, a set salary regardless of what hours they're working. So, some counties that are only working 32 hours a week, they have to pay the same as someone working 40. So this recognizes that. So, and these salaries are slightly higher than the mandated, just to keep that in mind, that this may come about in the future. As I know that they've been working hard to make changes to the schedule. So I just wanted to keep you informed there.
Our chief probation officer director has kept us well informed
I'm sure she has.
with these kinds of things
Excellent.
to keep us up to date
Yeah.
with what's going on. At ICCA, that's the Indiana County Councils Association annual conference in this, whenever it was, this spring. We had 2 legislators that were on the committee that oversees these kind of things, open it up to the public. I said, why doesn't the new judicial lit help us pay? It's a state employee. pay for probation officers. And he said, we don't have the money.
Yeah.
End of comment. The state does not have the money.
Yeah, these schedules are something that's, been in place and counties have had to, work around for, I don't know, I think went in place 2004. So we'll see if there are changes in the future. All right, the next group would be the elected officials. So the first page elected officials should look like this, with the full comparatives. It should have salary comparison at the top. So what we've done here is shown the Henry County, current salaries for each elected official. And then the counties that were included in the survey, we've listed their salary and provided a average external salary amount at the bottom. And then the actual external range, so the lowest to the highest salary. So this is different than the 10% above and below, but just to show you what that actual range is. And then for the surveyor, we have separated those into licensed, and non-licensed, so you can see, the difference in pay there.
Can I add a note, because it's been brought publicly on a blog post that we're about the only elected official paid upon midpoint. Earlier, you had said that you drop those counties that are 10% above or below. Fayette County's listed and they're 1/2 of what the midpoint is. If you drop that out, we're below market also. I bring that up because it keeps coming up in the county.
Yeah, you could definitely do a weighted average with those if you dropped some of those out. But I just wanted you to see the full data here. So the next page for elected officials is just the same data. It just looks different because I've listed each of the elected officials and the 7 council members, 3 commissioners, and costed it out what it would be to move those positions to the external midpoint. And then for the surveyor, it is noted that we use the non-licensed surveyor data for that cost. So to move those positions, to the external, midpoint or average salary was 10.48% increase for elected officials. Any questions there with elected? Okay. The next page is the SO chief deputies. And so here at the top, we have the elected offices, for the assessor, auditor, clerk, recorder, surveyor, and treasurer at the top. These are the ones that we have set. Their external midpoint is set 85% of the elected officials' external average salary, and then the cost to move those positions to the external market. The sheriff's chief deputy, is not included in with that group with the 85%. The sheriff's salary is set differently than the other elected officials as far as with a contract. And so we have done a direct job match to the market for this position and made sure it's in alignment with the internal rate structure of the sheriff's department. So that's the reason for that one being pulled separately. And then so we've done the total cost for that group, for those positions to move all those to the external midpoint would be a 21.67% increase. And then there should be a cost summary for you for all the job categories. We've listed the total salaries, the total cost to move positions to the external low for each job category, if that option was provided, and then what that percent increase was, as well as the external midpoint. So overall, when you look at all of the job categories and the positions, to move the positions to the external low would be a 5.74% increase. To move the positions to the external midpoint would be a 16.83% increase overall. And I will note that this does not, cost summary doesn't include part-time positions, or any of the proposed positions.
You're talking about it does not include any of those positions that you had asterisks that are proposed by a department head, but not currently on staff. I mean,
Correct.
so this does not include any additional that we would consider adding.
Correct, because we don't know the current salary for those to average the cost. Because it would skew it if I put the full salary in there. You don't want that skewing the percentage.
Just council, as we left Thursday's meeting, we had talked about trying to go to 97% of midpoint. And a calculation has been made, and that would be $1.4 million. And apparently that's excluding those proposed new. Just compare that with the most we've done in the last 5 years. It's $400,000. And yet that is a goal with the new lids.
Right, right. And then the last document you should have in your file would be the proposed salary schedule. So this was something that was requested. So basically using the data that was provided, the external midpoint, low and high, it's basically a summary of all the information by job category and classification level, without the individual positions listed. And I think you received something similar to this last year. This one just does include all the separations for the polls, and then the updated ranges for the SO positions and the elected officials and chief deputies as well.
A tremendous amount of work that will help the council immeasurably.
Good.
I know Shannon mentioned he was on the job classification as a outside community member or official who volunteered to be on it 6 years ago, something like that. He lasted 6 months because we didn't have a uniform guide. And it just was not consistent. This would allow us to be much more consistent based on data.
Yeah, this is great information. I've been on job classification since I came on council in 2020, and there's information here I've never heard before. So the data is great. It's going to help us as we plan for our future budget. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad it can be helpful for you.
Other comments, council? If our attorney's okay, we're generally okay. Because he catches things that we might not
Sure.
catch, especially legally.
I know that we've all said it was what we were hoping it would be, and nothing looked surprising to us. So I really appreciate what you put together for us. Thank you.
I
You're
think-
welcome. It's been a good project. And like I said, everyone was cooperative. I know I had to make multiple calls to the same department to work some things out, and everyone was very helpful.
Okay. Council, there's people coming up to the podium. Last chance for you to ask Addie questions. I'm not feeling well, so I'm going to turn that over to you. Okay.
Go ahead, Angela.
Addie, I just have just a quick question. So the health department, we kind of did ours ahead of time. Remember when we did that? And looking at the 3 director positions, in the original report, our mid range was 66,864, and that was a PAT with a score of 450. And I think you've adjusted it a little higher than that, if I'm looking at this correctly, so that brought that up just a little bit. And so, that position, then the midpoint went down $3,380.17. So I have a few positions who decreased. I didn't know if you could talk to me as to why that was.
Yes. Yes, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. So previously, the PATs, um, the highest level PAT included the health administrator position,
Mhm.
which was director level,
Mhm.
and the community corrections director. So when those externals had kind of raised that higher. So when we took those out and resurveyed, the data, we didn't have those director level salaries
Ah.
in there. And so, cause I caught that right away. So that's why those director level salaries had that effect on there.
And that's about a consistent amount, about three, there were those three positions and that several of them raised, obviously, because you had better data. But the ones that did decrease,
Yeah, those.
that
are
was
more-
about an average of a decrease of 3,000 from what I put in for the budget for this year, just so the council is aware. If you are approached, I went with this, just, we had to have someplace to start, so it's fine.
Right. And so we still have those positions coming in just under 6,000 for an increase
Yeah,
for the midpoint.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that on or, yeah. Addie, good job on all of these numbers, good information.
John,
this-
can you speak into the mic? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Just more into the mic.
I'll just do this if that's better. Just want to point out a couple of items. I think we all know this, but these are 2024 actuals, correct? Is that correct, Addie? These numbers are based on 2024 actual
Yes, actual
information.
data
Okay,
collected, yes.
actual data. So when we talk about, I know we've been talking about a 97% increase. That is based on the 2024 actual. And Addie, I guess this question is for you. The market for sheriff's office employees, deputies, what do you estimate that to go up percentage-wise in 2025? Do you have some kind of a range on that?
Not a hard set range yet because the counties haven't passed their, increases. The last few years, it's ranged between 7% and 9%. I think it's gonna level out a little bit, but I can't say for sure what it will be.
But 7 to 9 is just a fair estimate, I guess.
It's what it's been the last few years, but I think the driving, a lot of counties have been trying to increase. I know a couple counties have looked at, around 4% increases, but everyone's in their budget hearings right now, so I probably won't know that until later on.
No problem on that. Would it be fair to say that, that the law enforcement is increasing at a faster rate than any other categories such as the PATS and these other categories? Is that a fair assessment?
Public safety has been, increasing overall at a higher rate the last couple years,
Okay.
I believe.
One other item for the council that I want to point out, the positions that were not included was 4 corporal spots and 2 lieutenant spots. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew the only difference in salary would simply be, I think the corporals is a $3,000 per person raise, so that would only be 12,000 total. And the lieutenants are only about a $3,000 raise above the sergeant position. So it's not like that there would be an entire whole new salary. So we're only talking like less than $20,000 in total to cover all of those proposed positions. So there's no full salaries. It's just simply a brass pay structure bump up. So we're not proposing adding a new person, which would be a base salary plus. So just the one last comment that I want to make that is very interesting to me, and it's all here in the numbers. The sheriff's office would take 23.76% for the deputies to get to midpoint, and that's based on actual 2024 information. Just very interesting that no other category other than EMS um, is anywhere near that high. So that tells me that the sheriff's office currently is underpaid by the most percentage-wise than any other category other than EMS. And the takeaway from that is the sheriff's department and EMS are actual, their public safety categories. And it's so interesting that we have proposed a public safety tax in 2016, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but through today, we're probably talking about $20 million of revenue generated by that public safety tax. And here today, the public safety is underpaid more than any other category. And that is just, I think that's hard for me to get my mind around, that we have taxed our citizens 20+ million, and the public safety factor, which has the tax named after it, winds up, after all those millions of dollars, being the lowest paid. And just one last thing that I want to point out, if we go with the 97% pay based on the external midpoint, January 1, the actuals are going to change. And if we just average what Addie said, law enforcement may jump 8%. So there's a great chance if we put into place the 97% pay across the board, that come January 1, the law enforcement will be paid the lowest per percentage out of any county employee position. In fact, it would be very difficult, other than maybe EMS, that's just going to be a fact. So it's kind of staggering to me to see all these actual numbers and realize that the two public safety categories are the most underpaid, and we've taken 20+ million. I don't have the numbers, but maybe it's only 17 million. But it's in there somewhere, 17 to 20 million, maybe more. We've taken that money from the taxpayers in the name of public safety. It's named public safety. And we just can't seem to get away from, we have to do, we've got to raise everybody at the same rate. And public safety is on the bottom side of this. And I don't understand how that can be. I guess it's in the number somewhere, but that's interesting. I think our citizens would find that interesting, that we just raised their taxes, and the public safety aspect is going to be the lowest paid for what's being proposed. We will be the lowest paid public employees.
Addie, do you have any thoughts about the timing issue of different job classifications increasing at a quicker rate throughout, in between job adjustments?
Well, I
Do you
think,
understand the statement the sheriff was making?
since 2020, we have seen a higher demand, like a shortage in police officers. Last year, the Indiana State Police passed their starting rate. They set their starting rate for troopers at 70,000. So that caused a frenzy for across county departments, sheriff's departments. And a lot of counties right now are trying to compete with that. But a lot of the smaller counties like yourself can't afford to set it at that same rate. In the past, counties were stealing officers from the Indiana State Police. Now it's kind of been reversed right now. But with any job category, when you do one of these studies, you're always trying to hit a moving target. The market is always moving. And we, unfortunately, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know where the market's gonna go for sure. And so we use the data that we have and try to make sure you're current, with that. I know, many years ago when working here with this county, we were able to, the council was able to hit midpoint and then set a cost of living above that. And maybe hopefully you'll be able to get there, in the near future, but you've made huge strides. It sounds like that you're looking at, major pay increases to all the categories. And I think that that's just to commend you on those efforts. And it's taken a long time to get back where you've been, from where you've been. So I mean, I think just monitoring the market increases, but as far as the different categories, I mean, the past few years does show that the public safety positions have increased at a slightly higher rate. That trend will probably continue here in the near future, but I think those numbers are gonna level off because so many departments across the state have made significant increases. I work with a couple other counties and they've made, anywhere from 12 to 16% increases in the last couple years to get those officers up where they need to be. So I think it's gonna be leveling out. But that's the best I can tell you for right now.
I did some calculations over the weekend. When Susan and I took office, 2018 to the proposed 97% of midpoint, and we're nowhere close to midpoint. Our moving target the last 3 years has been trying to get the low,
Right.
and we've not made significant gains. We've kept up with the other counties, but we're still haven't made gains into that 10%. If we were to adopt the 97% of your midpoint, the elected officials from 2018 to 2025 will average 25% raise increase during those 6 years. Poll workers will average 45% from 2018 to 2025. The other workers, mainly the Justice Center, will be about 25% increase in the last 6 years. Then there's a category from EMS director to custodians to highway to HR, GIS, whatever. That'll be about 30 to 32% increase in the last 6 years. And those that are deputies, a lot of will average about 30% increase since 2018 when we took office. I will say when we took office, the public safety lit was made at that time previously to make payroll. That was not what was advertised in 2016. We tried to correct that. I think with what was passed last Thursday, we should be able to accomplish that. Last year, I think everything we put in public safety lit related to public safety, probably for the first time since we took office in 2019. So it has been a moving target where we're trying to chip away. I would say by far the primary rationale for the increase in lits was relating to salaries and getting them up because we did have a pre-release of this and it told us what we suspected. We don't pay nearly enough and we're not competitive across the board.
Right.
So those are just my thoughts. This will be by far 1.4 million is 3.5 times more than any that we've done since 2019 as far as amount of money that we will have for raises. I'm done. I'm sorry.
So I know it's up to the council to take this report and use it as we would, but I wanted to just tell you what we talked through the other day and see if it sparked any thoughts from you. We had initially kind of pre-brainstormed, we would hit 95% of market immediately. And then every April, when we get the new report from you, adjust back to 95%. There's a workload issue then with the auditor's department. April's a bad time of year for them to make those changes. They're just very busy then. And then, to do it now and then to do it again in April. So then we were talking and we said, well, maybe we hit 97% and leave it until January of each year and readjust to 97%.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to know if that sparks any thinking from you about advantages or disadvantages of that modification.
No, I really think that's a good game plan going forward. So you're looking at making adjustments immediately?
We have the money in reserves and
Yeah.
we know the people deserve the money. So we were gonna adjust now, September 1, and then leave it until January 1 of each year and base it off of your previous April report.
Right, 'cause you'll
Just
get the
to
information
streamline
and
that change. So we know then, and to the sheriff's point, the people who are increasing faster than, they lose out on those 6 months, but we also are moving them up a little higher than we had initially intended. We were gonna hit the 95, now we're gonna hit the 97 earlier, but then the change will lag further behind. So I just didn't know if you, any thoughts? So,
I mean, I commend you on making these huge strides. A lot of counties wouldn't be able to implement it immediately. It'd have to lag to January 1st to start with. So I think,
Gonna take advantage of the interest income that we've unexpectedly earned.
yes, no,
Try to
I
make
think
good use of it.
any adjustments that you can make immediately would benefit the employees. And like I said, you can always make adjustments later if necessary, if there's something happened where, you had a position that was really, or a group of jobs that something major happened, after the first of the year, but I don't anticipate on that happening.
So what would be you're basically saying if one group of jobs market changes drastically, is that what you're saying? We could make an adjustment, or what are you
Yeah,
suggesting?
yeah, if something major happened, or if there was, if a major exiting of positions, employees in a job category or something
Mhm.
that would be pretty extreme.
Dovetailing off something that Sheriff said and she just brought up. I think it was in budget hearings 2021 and 2022, previous sheriff came in and pointed out from your market research how tremendously underpaid poll workers were, especially his road deputies and correctional officers. Getting your market analysis those years, that was proven to be a fact. I remember my statement was, give us 3 years. And what we did do in budget hearings 2021 and 22 was give almost exactly twice the raise to poll workers than what we did to everybody else in the county. We got your more recent market analysis and we didn't make a dent. We didn't make a dent for everybody, but we didn't make a dent. So when I said give 3 years, we cut it a little bit, but everybody else was raising also, like you
Right.
said. So that moving target didn't give us any net gain in that department or any other department. I remember in 2022, when I think we gave like a 7% raise to poll and a 2.9%, something like that. For everybody else, that July, when we were doing budget hearings, the inflation rate was 9%, the highest in, I don't know, since the 1980.
Yeah.
We didn't make a dent. Our revenues didn't increase 9%. So it's a battle. But I think with what occurred last Thursday, we can finally make a serious dent after all these years. Thursday, correct me if I'm wrong, council, we were aiming for 95%. Then we had that discussion with the auditor and what it would take. We wanted to do 95% in September. And I think after listening to everybody, what this would do to departments and department heads and certain offices, it was decided, let's do 97% in January, kind of split the difference of what it's going to cost the county. And then we get a new market analysis from you, April, May, I don't know, whatever you can do, and then we go from there. But the intent is to stay at near midpoint and not get this 10 to 30% below where we've been.
Right.
Even though we've made strides, we haven't made gains. So, I think that's what I want to say.
Welcome.
First off, thanks, Addie. I know you did a lot of work on this. Probably do it for a lot of counties. And to Kenneth's point, we appreciate the raise the sheriff's department. We really
Can
do.
you, I'm sorry,
Am I not loud enough?
thank you.
There we go.
It's me.
Tall, just too tall.
First off, Addie, good job.
Got water on the ears, sorry.
Second, Kenan, thank you for the raise. Nobody wants to pay cops more. We get it. It's just the job market we're in. I can tell you, we ran a hiring process last year where we got 0 qualified applicants. So that puts us way behind. Jay knows better than anybody, we spend a lot of time training our people. We invest a lot of money in them. So I'm assuming, Addie, the reason law enforcement has gone up is to be competitive across the board. So my second question is to Susan, you said going up this year and then looking in January, will that be like we increase salary September 1 and then January of 2026, look at the increase next?
Right. So the procedure we want to follow is every January update to the previous April report. So we could do that this year, but then we would just be holding, I mean, we could base it this coming April and then adjust immediately. But we're thinking we'll adjust now in September and hold it till January 2026.
Okay. And then Addie, how many counties do you work with or government agencies? Just roughly. It's not a.
Well, we work in, over 80 of the 92 counties,
Okay.
either on policies or comp plans.
So, and as an employee and having been here 20 years, do the counties normally or government agencies try to figure out what that number is for their year and then predict a little further ahead? Because I know in the past, we've gotten behind on all classifications. And it seems like if we have classifications increasing or job categories increasing, and we know the potential to increase is great in the previous year, but we're always shooting for the year behind numbers. Seems like that's where we get really askew in some of our job categories, is because we're not anticipating increases when we know they're going to be there. I mean, is that a fair?
Well, like I said, in the past, the county, this has been many years ago, Henry County would adjust to midpoint and then make an additional adjustment. And so a lot of counties are struggling to even get to midpoint. I just did a project in another county, and their goal for 2025 is to get everyone to the low and then phase in over hopefully 2 years to get to midpoint. So they're gonna be behind, and they know that, but at least they're making strides. They have to have a target to get there. And so I think you're always chasing that target. And if you can do the midpoint and a cost of living, that's great, but not everyone can afford to do that and anticipate. That would be ideal, to be able to make the adjustment with current data and then a cost of living on top of that. But again, it all comes down to available funding.
Makes sense. Okay, that was my question. Appreciate it. Thanks
Mhm.
again.
Just an FYI, what's been brought up the most are the road deputies. What we're proposing is a 17.5% raise without the matrix.
Right.
So when you're saying the ideal would be external market plus cost of living, what would you use for cost of living?
You could look at the what the inflation rate is, or you could look at what the cost of living, indexes that's issued out. So we would have to look at that data and see where that number is.
So you wouldn't suggest different for different job categories? You're talking about a set cost of living, or are you talking about different?
It's usually a set number, yeah. I know for a couple of our clients, when the inflation rate was really high, um, what we provided for them, because it was a concern. And these are, clients that have been able to maintain a little closer to the market. So we had provided them data with cost to midpoint, and then also with add-on inflation amounts at that time, with the social security inflation rates of whatever it was, 8 or 9%, showed them what those costs were. Now, very few could attain that level. But they had that data that they were looking at to make those adjustments.
Does anyone have any other questions for Addie now that she's here? The wealth of knowledge right here. Anyone else?
Out of curiosity, can you share any incentives or anything other counties or municipalities use to have their employees live within the county?
That is a good question. Well, there used to be the incentive of some take-home vehicles for certain positions, even sheriff's departments, that was kind of a requirement to live. But those barriers have kind of been broken. For example, Hamilton County, I know, stole an officer from, not stole, but they recruited, reframe that word. They recruited an officer from another smaller town up north of Muncie. And I believe they have a take-home vehicle that they're allowed to drive from that town. So those barriers have kind of been broken as far as that. Really, the incentives we've been seeing are more for recruitment, like retention bonuses, trying to get more creative with some of the benefits that counties offer, more so than just trying to get them to live within the county.
Have you ever seen any counties give incentives for deputies to live in the county, specifically monetarily? Is that done by?
I think that was in the past. I haven't seen any of those recently, but I think more recently in sheriff's departments, it's been those either hire on bonus or retention bonuses or referral bonuses. If you can refer and get someone to come and work for the county for 6 months or a year, then that employee would get a bonus. So some of those type of things.
So I have a quick question. Longevity and sheriff's matrix. From my experience, a lot of counties have stopped paying that. You cover a lot more than I'm familiar with, but what's your experience with that as far as like the sheriff's matrix and the longevity that we have for all employees? How is that in other counties? Is that still something that's being done globally? Or I know there's several that have done away with those things, but I mean, what's your experience on that?
Well, a lot of the sheriff's departments do have some form of longevity, whether they build it into their pay matrix or they have it separate. But it's still pretty common that they have some sort of longevity pay, regardless of what it's called. It really, some of them have shifted, a few of them have shifted it from based on years of service more to the rank pay, to make sure we're building those rank differentials between the ranks. Like I said here, there's minimal rank differentials if you look at the base pay. So some will start with that separation of pay, having a base pay and then an add-on rank pay, where they may not have longevity, but having that separation as they move up. But I think it's still pretty common to have some form of longevity in sheriff's departments.
How about for the other departments, like the comets, the apps, those types of things? Is most counties, are they continuing to do that, or have they started doing away with those things?
I would say it's probably about half and half. There's still a lot of them that have it, still a lot that don't. It depends on their personal experience with it. Some have had it, then they dropped it. Some haven't had it, or they had it in the past, they're adding it back. It just really depends on the philosophies of the council, whether they want to reward that, as a service. One of the advantages when implementing a new pay plan for a county is that if you implement the longevity at the same time, if you have positions that aren't coming in for increases, but and maybe it's because they've been there so long, then they would still get, a longevity payment, but not a base salary increase. So it kind of helps, with the morale and the implementation, for those. And the same way, even with existing, you have some positions that, are paid above the low or whatever base that you've set. Not a lot, but there are some that are already paid above the low. So if you were to set that salary at the low, you'd have some positions that would be coming in for no increase. Whereas if you have longevity, which you do, they would at least be receiving something, some sort of additional compensation.
Well, for that exact reason, I think it's essential to have that type of a program. When you have a class system like you're talking about here, you can have an employee sitting there for 20 years and someone walk right in the door today and get the exact same pay as their 20 years of experience. So I think it's absolutely essential to have, when you go on a class system and not a merit-based pay system.
Right.
I think you have to have something to delineate between those decades of knowledge and the brand new person walking in the door.
I think that's one reason last year, department heads were saying it's, for one, people coming in, what Chad just said, are getting paid the same as somebody that just left with 20, 25 years experience. I think that's one reason we increased on the non-poll side, the non-road deputy side, a 50% increase from $200 every 3 years to $300, and maxed it out at 15 instead of 10. And to reward longevity, maybe a little incentive to stick it out. I think Henry County hopefully has some advantages to other counties, ones like the crime rate. Until recently, it was housing. Right now, that's being diminished because our housing market's going through the roof, rental and cost, but at any rate. And then on the matrix side, we did something very similar, increasing it considerably in hopes that, well, we've got a couple of individuals getting $12,500, for example, for their experience, for sticking it out. And they need rewarded for sticking it out. So I'm glad we were able to do that last year when we didn't get the kind of raise. We did put that little bit in.
Sure.
Any other questions for Addie?
Any questions back there? Okay, good.
Thank you all for coming, and you're obviously welcome to stay the entire day for budget, but I know this was the most interesting part of it probably, but thank you all. And thank you, Addie. Very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. Between you and Baker Tilly, our Bibles, it keeps us straight. With real data by people who know how to crunch the data. So, 10:30, we have the clerk, so you've got a break.
Well,
Oh, thank you.
some things with that.
Please. Please and thank you. I'm just glad I'm not getting that look Stephanie's getting.
Yeah, still not perfect.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's good. You're all over there.
So it was Friday night, and then by Sunday night, I was like, okay, I started my interviews today to come back.
It's foggy.
That's foggy. That's good, still no headache. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, take it.
Thanks for asking.
No, of course. What was funny is I talked to you and then I broke my toe. No. It hurt so bad yesterday and then Chris had taken it up last night. So it's not, my middle toe. I kicked it out, but that's how.
Broken. It's pretty
He does, we're buddies. Nothing, it doesn't like you, but.
He never responded to 10 things
Yeah. I'm sure. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm so clueless. I know this, I got the schedule somewhere.
I don't, I also need to, oops, find mine.
Yeah. I'll be on this month. I see the brand. Yeah. No, once. She's still getting how long. Because of the exam. Also, did all the church stuff and the church dance and Yep, I did not play.
Try not to breathe.
We'll leave Marshall alone. I just don't, try not to run over you.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. All right, Brayden, I'll see you later.
All right, good talking to you.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, we were.
Oh, hi. I felt a shadow. What's up?
Hey, additional curious is you guys have already.
Well, we still only have size of this year.
Yes.
The consensus is we're gonna do that 95%.
Yeah, stupid things always result in injury. You joke about it.
Well, I just want to make sure I have this.
No? Well, we gotta discuss the new position people are asking. We gotta make a decision on part-time, because a lot of departments have part-time. She suggested something totally different than what we've done in the past.
I guess that.
I get paid the same hourly rate if they're doing the same job. But right now, she was taxed about $15 was a recommendation of the department heads. We did not have to do that. We gave that. Because 5 years ago, we had people making $9 an hour part-time and go to McDonald's and 14.
Right.
We moved it to 12.50, I think, and last year we moved it to 15. But there's one department, so.
And for us, it wouldn't be that significant.
No,
For us.
not for you,
But,
some departments. it's-
so even the, so we, our part-time, if they would be paid the same, would go the same, which is on their. So it wouldn't make a huge difference. The job position that is actually one of our books, but it's been vacant for several years, is the shop.
Saw that over, yes.
I'm not asking to add another person to our business. What I would do is promote one of our mechanics. We would not add an additional employee. He would just get a promotion.
Okay.
And but he would still be a working foreman.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
So no net new gain, but you mentioned the
yeah,
other day.
yeah. So for us, the changes would be pretty minimal. You know, as far as the movement. What's gonna be the significant part is actually how much raise you guys free, right? That's one of the biggest. So,
The census I've heard, we've had everybody here to, sometime ago, except my, big brother,
yeah.
it's within 7%. Midpoint in January.
For me, if I was adding more employees, it would be truck drivers.
I understood. That's been the case during my, Joe Lee.
Or CDL. Correct. I mean, with
Yeah, that would make
whatever
sense.
classification you want to put it.
Truck
But,
drivers, that have CDL,
Yeah.
are not truck drivers. They don't do any good. driving.
no, you know, don't get me wrong, the two labor positions we have has made a huge, huge, huge. Because where we were putting people in places to do like our paving, so like working the back of the paver obviously does not require a CDL. Okay. The biggest problem that I have is when those positions were implemented. Okay, and this is kind of like a part-time. Okay. We have a temporary heavy, we have temp heavy pay. So if you're not a heavy equipment operator, but you're operating heavy equipment that day, you get additional money for that. When Joe Copeland set up the labor position, those guys do not, I've got a guy that's working in the back of the paper, is making $30 an hour, and another guy that's making 15, for an example. So it's kind of like the same thing we were talking about at the time. My opinion, the heavy equipment, if you're getting heavy equipment paid, be the same across the board with our lights. That makes sense.
Kind of, you need to talk a little bit more, so I'm sure it makes sense.
Well,
That might have a little fun.
understood. So when you get a chance, you can sit down and talk, just give me
I
a
haven't
shot.
been doing it as well with you as I did with Joe. I need to do,
I just thought he was mad at me, or didn't like me, or.
I've been smelling it. I hope that we'll be able to do.
And even again, that's something that's rare. to me. So, you know, you get a chance, give me a shout. I mean, be more than happy to sit down and kind of go into a little more depth on it.
Me with my mom, I better put in. My face thing doesn't work. It does not like my face, or it's gotten so gray, it doesn't notice me. It doesn't recognize my face. I think I did it when I had brown hair. He goes, that's not cute. Well, what's happened to you? He said, I'm old. And it shows.
Yeah. But anyways, I'll get out of here.
Okay, no problem. I'll put it on a week from now.
You can just let me know. Get together.
It'll be a reminder of me for that. I'll get in contact and set something up.
Yeah, okay.
I'll have your budget.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds pretty.
Council, we want to start in a couple minutes with the clerk and voter
Can you give me a minute?
No. I would shake your hand, I would hug you. I'm not feeling well all weekend. I feel, I don't know, all of a sudden I just started feeling hot in the back. I probably could have done that in the last 15 minutes. It is hot in here. That's a good idea. Okay, well, you answered a lot of them. I did start studying it even more last night. I went through this again last night, highlighted it, and I caught something I didn't catch the first time. Well, you kicked in last year, and it was something similar. What the details of your spreadsheets are. Thank you.
It doesn't take much to. Actually, the one thing that I remember that in County Park.
And how did you do yourself?
I, plan, okay, to pick me up. I've been being out with friends, right? And, stairs and head up there. Basically, was only
That's definitely.
story. But it's, I remember I went to the, like the Minute Clinic or whatever they had at CVS, and the nurse was like, yeah, no, I'm not even gonna see you, just need to go to the ER. I was like, oh, okay.
They do a CT scan. They just like this. I figure there's probably anything training with what I did through the concrete, but when I did it, I felt like from one to because it turned my head. You're one here, one here. And that was what I felt yesterday, was my ear just didn't ring. Around it hurt.
Yeah.
Anyways, so.
That was one of the, no, that was one of the things they told me though. You have started to leave it for everything. Goes back in, let's get the checks. Then I remember like 9 months later. Walking to my doctor. Just the way it felt. I tell her about this and like physical. She's like, yeah, I think back.
Hey, council, we're gonna be on page 01.
So true. You can use this now. You want to do the typing? Want to do the typing?
Council, to give you a heads up, we're gonna be on 01 clerk, 010 voter registration, 062 election, 1119 clerk perpetuation, 8899 clerk incentive, and I'll repeat those again when we get closer. So there's 5. That's why we're gonna give you at least a half hour. Okay, is it okay to start? Do they have these or no? Okay, just so that we don't have what you have on the legal size, what you turned in. So she's gonna give you what we have so we can at least be in the same order. And what we'd like to start with is the 01, which is probably what you have in front. Give you a chance to correlate. But yeah, we don't have what you have on the legal size. And if we can cover the same things in the same order, it would help both of us. Thank you.
So.
And I'm gonna still, if she's okay, give it to Susan, because I'm just hot and clammy and just not 100%. I know she's not either, but she's better. You're 95% right now, I'm 85.
We'll make it. So when I looked through your budget, Jenny, I saw that there was really only an increase of raises and then a decrease in longevity. So I don't see any need to go through this unless you had any questions for us.
There's 4%, right, on the raises?
And we will, do your raises as we do the others, based on what we just listened to. So yes, did anyone have questions for Jenny about the clerk budget? It is all as it was last year, except for a decrease in longevity and a slight decrease in dues and, increase in dues and subscriptions. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's turned off
Turn
there,
the button
sorry.
on. If it's green, you're live, and you probably have to
Okay,
just move it in
gotcha.
front of you.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Because
So is it okay with everyone if we move on to the perpetuation funds?
could we do voter registration
Sure,
since it's next in our,
sure.
I know I'd be going back and forth between you two probably, but it's 010.
Yes, voter registration, 010. So obviously you have raises reflected here and not much else has changed except for an increase in registration dues here also.
I'm kind of surprised that you don't have an increase in postage. Most department heads have come with, I mean, because it just keeps skyrocketing.
Postage, it's been manageable, with,
That's important.
and there's no election next year. We do have the,
Fair point.
Oh, that's the main driving, isn't it?
Any questions about the voter registration budget?
062 is election.
Yeah, so I do not have 062.
062 is the election, if you have it. And this is an election year, so. But next year's not. I think it's nestled between council and
Have you
our
guys,
election board.
have you guys started working on, attaining poll workers?
not yet.
Not yet. Okay. When
A
does
little
that
bit
start?
closer.
Well, towards the end of September, 1st of October,
Okay.
so the training's like the third week in October.
If you get them too early, then you could forget. You have to do reminders,
Sure.
so kind of wait till, so it's on their mind that time closely.
It's between council and commissioners, the election board, 062.
I found it. Thank you. It looks like I didn't look at this one ahead of time, so.
Yeah.
An increase in the election board members. Do you want to just talk us through each one of these? There are, you're not asking because it's not an election year, so no election board members, no absent voter board, no precinct board, no overtime. Okay,
Repair and maintenance,
what'd you say?
repair and maintenance.
Repair and
supplies.
maintenance and
Okay, so
supplies.
repair-
Yes,
Okay,
talk to us about that.
Repair and maintenance, we need, our vendor reached out to us, ES&S, we need batteries for our express votes. And, they're $185 a piece. We need 190, so that's where we come up, 35,150. Express vote coin cells, $11 a piece at 190, $2,090. So we have 37,240 to replace our batteries. We'd like to do that on the off year to get prepared for the 2026 election. The Secretary of State is, offering HAVA grants to counties. They have $1 million. for counties to apply for these grants. So we have applied for, last year they offered at 2 million. We did not request anything at that time. We thought, okay, we're set. We don't need anything. But then now they've reached out to, they awarded money to 62 counties last year. So the other counties that were left will get first dibs on grants. So we have applied for a grant to reimburse us. So
Okay.
there's a possibility that this 38,000 will get reimbursed
Okay.
back to the county general. So
When will you find out if you get the grant?
I believe August, late August, they will be awarding making their decisions on their grant. August 30th. We'll know. We've also, applied for a few other things. We need a new Bellatar printer, but batteries are first and foremost on our list, so.
I saw that 38,000 and
I know.
we've got a hybrid van. And it would cost less to replace the battery in our hybrid van.
True. Yeah, when Renee did the
Prius.
calculation, she
So
felt.
you explained it's a lot of them.
Will they do they replace the batteries for you? Or do you?
They do
Yeah, it's
come,
a-
yeah, they will,
yeah.
yeah, the staff from ES&S,
Okay.
the vendor will come
figured.
and do that.
Yes.
Yeah, they have a 5 to 7 year lifespan and we're at 7, right? 5-year lifespan, we're at 7, so
Okay.
it's necessary.
Got good mileage out of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and I don't have any other questions. There's a significant decrease because it's not an election year and then the battery costs. So
Yeah.
any questions from the council?
The next one in order, I believe, is the 11 something. What's your perpetuation? 1119. And I think we have that. It's after child support. And before the assessor disclosure fund. And it's pretty simple.
Yes, it's, this perpetuation fund looks like the same budget as last year.
Right.
Are you keeping a pretty even balance in that fund, still able to cover these?
We try to use this fund for, it's very limited record keeping, preservation of records, improvement of record keeping systems and equipment, period. Can't use it for any, very little, so
Right.
it grows and it's like, there's very little that we can,
That you can do with?
yeah, like toner and paper and ink, that we try to spend what we can out of this rather than
Right.
general fund, so.
So are there any projects you can do to make your job easier that you can fund with this fund?
There's always talk of scanning, scanning our documents. But with we did have a company come and scan documents, but it isn't user friendly the way we scanned it all to one document when you're looking for, 2 pages out of 600. Then it's not scanned to the, events on the court case events. It's kind of hard, so yes, it would be ideal if we can find a company to come in and that knows our system, that can sit and scan a document to the events, but I'm not sure. I mean, they offer them all up at our conferences, but finding the right one to come in and do it,
Yeah.
we're still researching that.
I don't have any questions. Does anyone have questions over this clerk's perpetuation?
I think it's 88.99, which is is the clerk incentive,
Clerk
and it's
incentive.
like near the very end.
This is like the same type of fund. It's, can be used only for 100% 4D, child support. So we do hire Malcon to do our claiming, which, is necessary. they do the percentage. We'll have to say, okay, we bought a box of paper. How much can we take out of this fund
Right.
to be used? So they use percentage of staff's salaries plus the cases and so we use what we can. We pay everything we can out of it, so.
We appreciate that. This is the same as last year also. Does anyone have any questions over the clerk incentive fund? For Jenny?
How's your staffing? I know
Staffing.
early on when you came on that position, you kind of, I don't know if you cut or through recidivism, you didn't replace, but I think you have 9 employees. I saw somewhere, something like that.
I have, okay, so I had
Counted 11. Does that sound right or no?
11,
That included voter registration.
Well,
where
right,
there's
I didn't
2,
include voter registration.
I thought there was
9
about,
plus 2.
I have a bookkeeper, a chief, and then I have 8 deputies in my clerk's office, and then election is 2. Plus I have my part-time, child support prosecutor employee, so I think I have 7 deputies on staff. I was gonna restructure after my probate clerk retired in May. I was kind of gonna restructure duties, so I still have one that's, not filled yet. But getting there, yeah. Oh, yeah. Three of the clerk staff are actually working up in the courts right now.
That will hopefully be
So-
fixed very soon too, right? Like
Let's hope
job, like
that,
pay,
You know,
help
we
everyone out.
get them trained and then they,
Leave
Yeah.
for greener pastures and higher pay.
I just hired a new one, so she's only in her second week, so let's hope she
Yeah.
enjoys. It's kind of hard to hire off the street to do what we do. Yeah, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's what Wagner was.
Addie kind of touched base on that because we shared our concerns with her when we met with her. so.
And our prosecutor talked about similar problems, people,
Well, we've lost a few to the prosecutor too, but, we all do the same kind of work. It's just
Right.
different tier in your
You
office.
still get along pretty well over there. I mean, there's no jealousy or
No.
over all that.
No.
It's just to be expected almost. You come to expect it's going to happen.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get a heads
So-
up before it happens.
By the
they
way,
don't
we-
do it
over the
soften the
weekend, we
blow.
took Sally and
Yeah.
Susan.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions for us or anything you wanted to tell us while you were here?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Good luck in November.
Great. So you have the park at 11, you have the coroner at 11:30. Do you have anything else here today?
Sorry.
Sorry, you have the park at 11 and the coroner at 11:30. Do you have anyone else on this?
Yeah. Actually, a coroner about 11:45, but I thought they'd take 15 minutes. But
Nothing.
if we start the park early, we may get the
You need to go to the restroom.
coroner. Okay,
Okay, I'll be right back.
come on up. You. Hubby can stay back there. Planning Commission next week, I think. Welcome, welcome. No, we'll wait, we'll wait. I think Debbie may have, yes.
I gotta go 3 seconds. I've got to.
Okay, she's gonna give you forms, so in the past, what you submit to the auditor's office and that legal side, we don't have. She's gonna give you what we have, so give you a couple minutes. Yeah, so give you a little bit of chance to study that, so that we don't throw a curveball at you, so we are literally on the same page. We've not had that in the past, and it's been confusing in the past because of that. Council Parks 1179. They have a rental fund too, though. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Their rental fund's 1117, Bobby said. But the main one is 1179. So it's okay with you. We'd probably start with the 1179, your main one. Did somebody text Brian Clark? We set him up for 11:45.
Thank you.
I think we want him at 11:30.
11:30?
He's set up for 11:45.
Hi
We're starting
Casey, hi
early.
Rita. How are you guys doing? We're doing, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Is everyone ready to start looking through the park budget?
1179 and 1117 is their rental.
So we're going to, I'm going to tell you the health insurance contribution. And Debbie, you can correct me if it's not right. Let me find my last paper. For the park, we said it was going to be 60,000. Is that correct? 60.
60 for health.
So we went through Shannon, especially, worked with Stephanie, and they refined the numbers. And so we came up with a more actual expense. Yours was 43,000 for employees. And then we added an approximately $15,000 buffer in case each department would pick up another employee or another employee would pick up insurance. So we did that to every department. The cost of the retirees insurance for each different fund, the general fund's gonna pick up. So your actual 2024 was about 43,000, and then we're budgeting 60,000. So your group insurance line item will go from 45 to 60.
And I was working through Josh Estel too to get exact numbers, which in the past, we didn't have exact numbers. So the four departments that have a separate tax rate, 911, health, highway, and you, they're all paying the same amount based on their employees, based on the same rate, depending if they're family, single, and if they're retirees, vision, dental, everything. So everybody's paying exactly their fair share. We've been working closer on that. This year we'll get there as close as I think humans can get.
I'm sorry, am I-
So, in terms of, again, the health insurance, the other part that we had addressed.
Casey, I'm sorry, can you speak into the mic a little bit more?
So it's green.
There we go.
Live.
Okay, so our workman's comp line item,
Yes.
we had 1,500, which is what was in the past around that. It's now not, this year's was $9,520. So we have that increase as well.
Okay, it's just not shown in the budget request.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
We didn't know it was gonna be that much until after, right?
About 9,000.
9,520.
Okay. Okay, I understand.
That's a big jump.
Do you have, forgot again, what are we budgeting against? The Baker Tilly report. I didn't bring it again.
You got it.
Okay,
You got to memorize what page.
I don't, but I'm gonna. Yeah, the Baker Tilly's estimate of receipts. 498, 198. Okay, thank you, Debbie.
And with the two changes you just made, which you have to cut, because you can't, because the rest of it, that should get up to 480.
So, okay, and that included the workman's comp
Yes, the
change? And
workman's
what did we
gonna
put,
be insured.
what would workman's comp be if we? What would the correct number be for workman's comp?
9,500.
So what she
9,520?
said then.
Right.
Great.
That is a moving target.
Yes, another moving target. And then also, your wage increases are probably greater than what you included here based on, I don't know how much you've listened to the discussion so far, but we are targeting 97% of average market.
You just put in a 4% increase
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
auditor's department said to put in. It's going to be higher than that, given Wagner and Shealy report from this morning. We're trying to get everybody closer to external market comparable counties.
Right.
So let's go through and look at the budget. With the increase in group insurance, workman's comp and wages, my guess is you're gonna be over Baker Tilly's estimated receipts.
Okay.
So. And did you get, the WIS report yet with wages in it that we just released this morning?
No.
Okay, we'll make sure you get that. So we got it a week ago and they asked us to hold it and not distribute it until Addie presented this morning. Do you have one for her?
Your
Don't
arms
be
aren't
sure.
long enough.
Yeah, I think the other department heads, for the most part, got one.
Okay.
It'll take you a while to,
Because this adjustment is going to increase your part-time budget
Thank you.
significantly too. So the direction that the county is looking to take is to pay part-time people an equivalent wage of full-time people. They just won't receive benefits. And that information is all in that report.
Okay.
and that could be a significant
Yeah,
That
difference.
is
because that's
going
gonna
to-
jump from 1350 to 20 something.
Mhm.
I think you're
per-
right. Yeah,
If they're doing a similar job is what she recommended.
Right.
I don't know, but I think the council has to make a decision on that, but that was her
that was
recommendation.
the recommendation.
We'll probably talk about that on Thursday.
We're trying to incorporate as many of her recommendations as we can afford. Because they're good recommendations, but
Costly, but good.
costly, but good.
Okay.
So let's go through and look at the other line items, and then we may need to regroup a little bit because there's gonna be some changes in here. You're right, yeah. Yeah,
Which I did increase those a little bit. Yeah, so not much.
Yeah, quite a bit. Well, not with the amended, yeah,
right.
I'll shut up.
So what if we start by start with office supplies, since these other line items above are all going to be changed, right? The wages. Do you want to talk to us about general labor, or do you want some time to look through Addie's suggestions first, or?
I mean, yeah, I'd like to look through it first. But I do agree, a lot of our part-time people are doing the same as our full-time people. If not harder work. I mean, they're the ones weed eating and the full-time guys are the ones on mowers. So it's a little bit different, but, as far as like, the part-time amounts, you know, our rangers are part-time as well, but they don't do the same amount of work. And that has always been classified as the general labor.
Okay,
They weren't broken down. So like our general labor groundsmen, our weekend secretaries or the part-time secretaries and the rangers are all part-time, but they all make the same part-time rate.
And I think, Addie put the rangers as a pole position.
Okay.
Like under law enforcement,
Okay,
which
okay, I
which
can,
automatically adjusted the pay rate.
okay.
Let me actually, should we look at some of what Addie put together here for the?
Which again, they have
time?
no police powers or anything like that.
Okay, so she has two part-time park rangers, that have been recategorized as civilian poles.
Okay.
And their current hourly rate is $13.50. Does that sound right to
Yeah.
you? Okay. And then, the external midpoint, if we actually hit 100% of average, would be $17.34 an hour. And we're going to be attempting to hit 97% of that hourly rate. And so, these part-time employees, even though I don't see comparable full-time employees, she still gives you the rate. So you would still have that.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if she did rates if we didn't have comparable full-time employees.
That would be 1682.
That would be 1682.
1682 would be the hourly rate at 97% of her midpoint, so 1682 an hour. Up from 1350.
And then I see, groundskeeper, building maintenance, and she does give you a part-time rate for that too. That groundskeeper, building maintenance, she says currently is $13.50. The external midpoint is $20.62. So we need a 97% of $20.62.
$20 even,
20 even.
$20 even.
Okay, so that would be your groundskeeper, building maintenance, part-time, and then I see a grounds foreman, but that's a full-time position. Do you have other part-time position, titles that we could look up?
The weekend secretaries or the
Secretary.
part-time secretaries, yes.
The
Yeah, comment.
secretary, part-time, under comment. That is currently $13.50 an hour, and the external midpoint is $18.65. Would be $18.09. And then do you still have a weekend secretary part-time?
Yes.
Okay, so same thing. That's gonna be the $18.09. Does that cover your categories of part-time people?
Yes.
That's all I found in the report. Perfect. All right. And then, of course, this also will have your full-time people. So how does that impact your general labor? You're gonna need time for that, answer that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go back and plug.
Okay.
You think you'd be able to come back on Wednesday then?
Yeah.
After studying it? I mean, it's all good from the employee perspective. It's just
Yeah.
gonna cost more. So we'll have to look at your budget and adjust accordingly, but like Debbie said, what you submitted, we'll have to take care of that.
Right. Okay.
Should I ask Debbie or you?
Well,
Debbie's off.
probably 9:45 before extension office. Can you, 9:45 on Wednesday?
I believe so.
Bobby, can I ask you a question? Do you remember in the past 4 or 5 years when we adjusted the health department's tax levy, did we reduce the general fund or did we shift it from the park?
How about 11:15?
11:15.
Yes, 11:15. 11:15, follow up with Park on.
I think they're talking about, you're talking about funds and he's talking about.
I'm talking
times.
11:15 is the time.
11:15 a.m. Wednesday.
11:15 a.m. and I'll, Not get between
11:15
your-
on Wednesday. So,
The labor cost review.
so I will not be there because of my little girl's
Okay.
dentist appointment, but that's okay. I don't think I need necessarily be here for that, but. I think he said Wednesday, didn't he? Did you say Wednesday?
Wednesday the seventh,
So, okay.
at 11:15, the park coming back. That groups everybody that we had that day kind of together instead of all over the time. Where we at now?
So to me, these other items, why don't you tell us what you would cut if you have to accommodate these things? Or if you already have ideas, we could talk about that now, or do you want to just go back and think on your own? Remember, you have 498,000, so you and you can spend it, so you could come back and ask for the additional again.
Yeah,
That's
without without knowing how much payroll, I mean, there's not, it's slim. I mean, yeah, and we go through this every year.
We do,
Same thing.
we do. But we are talking about what you asked for, 465 going to, what'd you say, 488,
98,
498? So you've got some wiggle room.
right, except
Except for we
the
ate it,
15,000 for the health insurance.
and then 9 for
CD and
workman's
good.
comp. So it looks like most of the wages are gonna cause a budget overage. So. Okay, so I do think that your full-time groundskeepers, it looks like that is gonna be a small increase, maybe $800 or $900 a person for the year. Grounds foreman also. So it looks like your part-time people are going to drive up your labor more than your full-time people. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong with what I'm saying.
I think it probably will some.
Yeah, it looks to me like the increase is really gonna be mostly in your hourly people. So you might be able to absorb also the full-time increases. But your labor for your part-time people is it's a significant increase. When you're talking about going from 1350 to 20, that's.
The one thing that I think the council has say on is the part-time. We have a recommendation, but in the past, we've told department heads, there's been a few that said, we can't do that. Like, they've been paying out of their perpetuation fund. We can't do that. And what we've said in the past is, this is our recommendation. If you can't do it within your budget, you don't have to. We've gone from $9 low on part-time to $12.50, I believe. Last year, 15. Okay, if this year it's 20 and you can't do it, I mean, we did that to the recorder several years ago when we raised it from whatever, 9 to 12 or 15. They said, do we have to? And we as a council said, no, as a department head, if you cannot do it, it might be something you can't do it in 2025, but in 2026, you can get up to the Wagner, Irwin, Shealy. So I'm just saying, historically, we have done that to work with department heads, but that's a pretty significant raise.
Right.
And you might not be able to do that in 1 year. And you know that better than we do, what you can accommodate. But that gives you some flexibility to work within this new information that we were just handed this morning.
Right, yeah. Everything except payroll. Yeah, payroll was an exception, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the ordinance says with the exclusion of payroll.
Did
Yeah.
you guys leave any unbudgeted funds this year as far as increasing your balance? I didn't know when you came back and asked. I never checked to see if you asked for the full.
I think, I don't know what our full number was. We only asked for 118 in the additional.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I think we still had some extra on there. Just, obviously, I don't want to cut where I don't want to have to cut, but we did, in the 1179, I did ask for $5,000 for the 4-H facilities.
Oh.
If I had to cut an amount to get by to move to the rental fund possibly or not, the 4-H facility, that's $5,000. That might get me a little closer.
I saw that there's nothing in there for fireworks either.
There's
so,
not.
Yeah.
We think we should have that.
So far, it's worked out.
What'd you say?
So far, it's worked
Oh.
out.
So far, I know it's always at risk that you're not gonna be able to.
Do you want to come up here? If I miss something, just yell at us.
Must be boring over in the
Well, he's on the park
zoning
board.
administrator planning commission office today.
He's on the park board.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
Yeah.
So you're the Tom Green that I saw on the list. I thought it was your evil twin. Yeah, I had forgotten that. No, Angela included in her new employees under the 1161, the amount she asked for included perf and FICA.
Hmm.
So it's not consistent with the other three departments that have their own tax
Not my
rate.
youngest, but.
In her salary request, she included it in her salary request.
I think that we need to wait until they have time to think about it, and then we also.
I think it would benefit you to study
Right.
the recommendations and like the part-time.
Yeah.
If that's too much of a hit on your budget in 2025, I think we haven't decided yet, but I know we have done that with department heads before, saying that's going to be tough on us because there's other important things that we have as a priority. And we work towards that over 2 years. And if that helps you, what do you think?
I also think that as a council, we need to talk about the levy split. Between health receiving additional, but not until we have a.
Right, whole council. We have to do some discussions too. We've also talked about the Cume Bridge because if we do that, we put some in there, then we took it away. And we need to discuss that probably, like you said, with the whole council, we're a little bit. We have 5 out of 7. We value their input as well.
Sure. Yeah. So think about what you might reduce, think about where you would like to come out with part-time wages. We'll talk about if we do want to adjust that, the levy split at all. I don't know what the consensus would be.
Okay.
And reconvene.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll spreadsheet this up with
Okay, see.
the payroll and, and that way we know exactly what we're high in. Yep.
You want to look at the rental fund over here,
No.
1117.
Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah,
And can we talk about the rental fund?
Sure.
While you're here, because maybe it won't be as complex, or we won't have a lot of new information like you did on the other.
What
budget.
was the balance in the rental fund? Did you already say that? 83,000. What was it last year? Can you tell that from where you are? Yeah. I don't know if that's hard to get. So is that to mean that your rentals are going well?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
It's a good thing.
And with the improvements that we're making as far as, you know, like the shelter house and things like that, it should go up for next year as well. So we're very hopeful. The only thing I will say with the 1117, you know, that it does cover a lot of, or it's supposed to be covering the maintenance and, you know, the extras. We do have those grants or the food and beverage money. We don't have a total cost on the pond and the bridge just yet. We're starting those bids. So we may be having, if, you know, the roads and things like that, we may have those expenses elsewhere, that will come out of the rental fund, which is, you know, what those are for.
I'm not finding my 1117.
I can share.
Do you want mine?
Just, if I, just a second. Thank you.
I have a similar copy, so.
So is this where you take paint, you take paint supplies, different, if you need to fix shelter houses and all of these?
Yeah, it's kind of, as we need it type thing. We pull from the 1179 first,
Yeah.
and then, then anything like extra, like we had to pay for our website, fees, that came out of that.
Where does discussion about restrooms come up when you guys talk about it? Does it bubble to the top or?
Restrooms, so we have the two standalone, facilities, and those two standalone facilities, are going to be upgraded a little bit more with the, additional that we get asked for this year. So we should be putting some money into those. The shelter house bathrooms are also being remodeled. And then we added the family and ADA bathroom upstairs to the shelter house. So those 4 bathroom facilities, of course, we have the Smith building ones.
Right.
So we have, those should be getting a little bit more of a makeover
That's great.
for as far as the bathrooms.
I'm just now looking over this, so I'm a little behind the rest of you. But what you're requesting is just 12,500, is that correct?
Yes.
And the balance was what, 83?
83,000.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is you have a buffer, but you'd like to keep it because you have some unknowns,
Correct.
expenses coming up. And you were able to get the fireworks fairly.
We were close.
And the
We had
11th hour,
like around $1,000 that we had to cover, but
that's going to be an annual
An annual-
challenge, isn't
we're
it?
working on some better options. So that way we don't run into that every year.
I think we should talk
know.
about doing like a food and beverage match from
You-
the
you-
community.
You mentioned that earlier. It was kind of nice when a bank paid it all, but when the price, like everything else,
Yeah.
the inflation
35%.
skyrocketed, they said, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's going around trying to get donations, and that's tough. when
I mean,
you're
just our porta potty rentals for that day was $920. So, I mean, I know it's crazy to think, but just, there's no restroom facilities on the soccer field.
Right.
So, just that amount alone is like,
Yeah,
give us a discount.
and yeah, and Hudson's does give us a discount.
they don't.
They do.
Oh,
Yeah, they do.
I remember we had to have a porta potty when we had construction, and I couldn't believe the cost. We didn't get a discount, but that was back 17 years ago. They go, are you kidding me? I said, yeah, we have to come out and service it and dump it and all, okay. But I can't imagine what the number you had, but at least you got
Well,
a discount.
We
That's
had
good.
10 regular and 2 handicap.
And then we got porta pots at the Smith building, I mean, the shelter house. Because when they're working on the bathrooms.
Right.
The restrooms right now, so we do have an additional expense because of that.
I don't know,
but-
council, if you've seen some of the updates to the big shelter house, but it's really looking nice.
The roof is finished. They finished the roof Friday, so it's now got a copper metal roof on it. And those materials were donated from Whitewater LLC. So
Wow.
the park only had to cover the cost of the labor.
The labor, we paid that, but the materials.
And you've got, I read in somewhere, maybe on a post or online or courier, that you've got Amish workers, so
Mhm.
quality, I'm
Figures
sure,
down,
it's
yeah.
quality labor.
Yeah,
and
they work fast. And I mean, it's, they're taking a lot of the woodworking to the max of keeping it as rustic
it
as
looks
it
really
was. So
nice.
once the windows and doors get in and the trim is all back, to the semi-original, it's going to look
They're
fantastic.
doing a really nice job on the windows. I've seen those.
And those should be in soon.
The wood part petitions the windows off. It's in between two glass panels.
Oh.
So when we clean them.
No cleaning squares. So
You clean the whole thing.
9 squares per panel or per top and bottom, so 18 squares. It's a pain.
I see also you have, I know this is going to shock you, critics online, like the pond. What is the status of the pond and the expectation on the calendar? I know that had to be drained before they do some kind of analysis, but.
Right,
where we at
so
on that?
we, the bids will open Wednesday. We have a meeting, Park Board has a meeting on Tuesday, tomorrow, to finalize everything, and then the bid documents will go up on the 7th, and then they will close around the 19th, I believe. And then once it's awarded, 90 days completion is what we're shooting for. So Thanksgiving-ish, December is to be completely dug out back to depth, the shorelines repaired. Depending, again, some of that's depending on cost, if we can add a dock, like an ADA accessible dock on one end. We are gonna have to fix the spillway and the valve to open and drain that, because that has been a headache. And then we still have the uncertainties of the bridge. So shooting to be completely done with that and back refilling by the end of the year.
We are making that road, the bridge, pedestrian only, not traffic.
Yeah. So the road that separates the two ponds, the bridge, that will be a pedestrian walking bridge only, or bike.
Okay.
And that will be able to further extend the shorelines out on that side. So we will have more green area, and then allow for the riprap rock to kind of stabilize that bank. And then they'll take the other side on the south end of the pond. They'll take that up a few feet as well. It's kind of like a double road now, but it's not really marked. It's just a wider road. They'll take that up a little bit to be able to establish that shoreline a little bit
I know
sturdier.
the cost to make it drivable again was at least $500,000.
700,000,
So.
That's why we
Say
made it
700,000?
700,000.
for a new
Make it drivable
bridge.
Again for that bridge.
You can't go with the highway department and put in a huge culvert?
Technically, it's considered a culvert now because of the length of
Right.
the bridge,
It's a.
but
I mean, a steel
Sure, I
culvert.
think.
A huge steel culvert would not cost 700, it'd cost a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100,000, but it wouldn't cost 700,000.
and we want to keep the rustic, or the historic of that as much as possible with the or with the light posts and, the bridge. So the decking is completely going to have to be changed. But we don't have numbers, or I'm still looking for
But-
the perfect answer for that.
Did you talk to your Amish construction if they do bridges?
We've had a couple people come out and look at it. So, I mean, the pond committee is working, and again, we'll know more tomorrow, and we have that update for them. So,
You guys know that the monies from ARP have to be under contract.
yes, by the end of the year. Yeah, I'm pushing for hopefully to get the roads with that amount. Again, without the uncertainty of knowing how much the pond /bridge is going to cost, we've kind of held off on that ARP money until we know those numbers. So we should know something this month, and then we can plan for those ARP funds September. But those roads have to be done. It's gotta be. I've had a couple of bids put out, from everything from just milling them out and paving them to a complete redo of that area from, it's kind of hard, but basically the shelter house road that you turn into the road all the way up into the maintenance garage was $80,000.
80?
80. So
Yep.
it was
It's a-
pretty costly
that's
for
right.
that.
It's expensive. Bituminous, expensive.
But yeah, so we're working on it, and we'll get some final stuff going here soon.
Well, thank you, guys. We'll
Yeah.
do a take 2 on Wednesday.
Yes, for sure.
11:15 on Wednesday?
See you back.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Well, next we have the coroner who's 007. You bring your James Bond cape?
you get.
How are you? What people say, better than I deserve? Better than I deserve? So you're after the surveyor. 007. I think we're gonna be talking about autopsies. Same as last year. Oh, move that and green button. There you go. You got it.
Yeah, really autopsies is our biggest expense.
We're gonna just wait until Sue, where she is. Where'd you go?
Sorry. Okay,
And does he have the sheet?
I'm ready.
Welcome.
I
We're gonna
have
give you-
this, which is,
Yeah.
is July
Well,
report. Is
close.
that,
But I think Debbie has one that's actually what we're looking at, which would be
Oh,
the
okay.
budget request in this
okay,
landscape mode. So we're talking it like you have, yeah.
okay.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yes.
Just to get a sense of things. How many runs did you guys have last year?
I don't know, I reported that past, but. 151.
And that's more than the year before, and the year before, and the year before. Why, I think I know the answer, but you can confirm it. Like, is this a result of deaths of despair and
Deaths of what?
despair?
Just,
Are you unfamiliar?
no, I
Or
don't know
which-
that I would say that. It's just the result of more bad drugs. I mean, we had 14 overdose deaths last
But that would
year.
be considered a death of despair.
Yeah.
I guess
so-
what I'm not trying to like debate you or anything. I'm trying to understand because I've been the liaison for 5 years and Stacy and I had many, many conversations and when Stacy was coroner, the first time, not the most recent time. So it was like, I don't know, 12, 16 years ago. He said that a year that had 100 runs was a very bad year. And that number's been ticking up for the last 5, 6 years, where 151 runs. I mean, if 100 runs is a bad
Right,
year,
we're at 104 for the year already,
yeah.
for this
So-
year.
And that gives us and just a sense of budgeting too with regards to autopsies. So 14 overdoses, what other causes are you seeing?
119 natural deaths, 6 suicides, 2 homicides, and 1 undetermined.
Sorry.
Oh,
I can't
you're
write
fine.
that fast. What,
Oh,
over the numbers again?
23 accidental deaths. This is 2023.
2023?
2023.
Okay.
2 homicides. 6 suicide. 119 natural. And 1 undetermined.
What was the last one?
Undetermined, 1. Mhm.
And is there any specific area that sees more increases, like is 14 overdoses normal for the county or?
14 overdoses is way more than normal.
Okay.
We usually have 3 or 4. And we're not on pace for the 14 this year. We still got a few months left, so, but we have had there's
I know.
an increase
fentanyl
in
and-
normal, bad drugs, Chad, right? Bad drugs. So,
Where did
it's
you
going,
ask
it's
Chad?
going, it's going around. That's just our underlying,
Okay,
conversation.
between you two. Okay.
Yeah.
It's public
So-
now.
I'm not accusing Chad of being a drug
I
dealer. I
understand.
mean, I did once, but
I have to be tongue in cheek at least once.
I think it would really be helpful to the council just to have a sense of things. Like I know Stacy used to give us a monthly, like here's what runs I've been on, here's how they broke down. I think you've seen that paperwork before.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to do that for us?
Sure.
Just to give us, just for context,
sure.
be great.
The 14 ODs, where did it fall under accident, homicide, suicide, natural and undetermined?
They fall under accidental deaths.
Okay. Okay.
Is the increase in autopsy expense more autopsies or more expensive autopsies or both?
Just more autopsies. Yeah.
Where do you have the autopsies done?
Here at the hospital.
Okay.
Use a traveling pathologist that
The
comes. to
same one?
us. Huh?
The same one that we've used in the
Yeah.
past? What's it, remind me his name?
Sagro Forensics.
Ah.
It's not Dr. Sezio. He was on a hiatus to Mexico.
Oh.
So. It's
Is
Dr.
it still $1,600 a
2,200.
2,200?
That's on the low end of the going rate right now. A lot of coroners pay 25,
Sure.
3,000.
Are there any current reimbursements through, like, I know Stacy had some grants for toxicology.
I use the state toxicology for all my toxicology that I can get by with.
Uh-huh,
If it's not a unknown death, I can't,
sure.
I can't falsify my paperwork to get
Right.
that paid.
No, no,
for,
we.
but
we don't
I
want
do
that.
utilize that the best I can. I get all my reimbursements from Geo.
Sure.
We're up to
Yes.
date on that. So that reimburses us. That comes back to my autopsy line, except for the ones that are at the end of the year, we'll have one or two that don't get done and that just comes back to the general fund.
How's, your office in the old jail? Is it working out?
Eh.
Okay. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, reimbursement from jail was a big problem, partially on our side, I mean, partially on the county side. But I'm not sure it's pursued diligently at one time. That's all straightened out now.
Yeah, and they turn those around pretty good, Bobby. Usually in a couple weeks, they're good about getting us paid, the last one was a few weeks, maybe 3 or 4, but I mean, they do pay us. So I keep track of all that because that's money that we can get back by statute. So we need to do all that we can.
How much of a raise did you put in for yourself?
Well, I'd put in the low market range from last year's,
Well, this is from.
study, so-
Wagner and Shealy.
yeah, from last year's,
Okay,
on the low end. So
yeah. We
the
kind of
difference
saw that this morning.
from, the difference well, I didn't bring that paperwork up from what,
So 2023 low,
yeah.
which was 10% below last year. Okay.
And especially with your increased runs and, I mean. Yeah,
So how do we, this is a stupid question, but how are we currently coming up with this part-time rate from what I saw in the WIS report was an average hourly. Do you track your hours?
No, they, for my deputy coroners, is that what you're
And
talking
also
about?
for yourself, I mean, the coroner position was listed as average hourly rate, and I just trying to think about how
I
we're
don't
gonna
think it
come up
was
with a number.
hourly. We paid deputy coroners $80, and as you've seen, it's 75 to 150, so I'm not sure.
Okay,
Well, you were on the low end. I
When
remember
it comes
seeing
to that,
What category was that?
SO,
Okay. One of the SOs.
yeah, one of the 5.
I remember seeing it when she was going over it. Oh, yeah, the special occupations, 80, and the range from all 14 counties is 75 to 150 per call. Yeah, definitely on the low end.
yeah, I see the definitely. Did she just give us a flat out salary recommendation for the coroner, the bottom?
Mhm. She gave us a range to look at.
She gave cost to midpoint, okay.
I mean, do you want to raise that deputy coroner, $100? That's, I don't know.
still on the low
doing
end.
Math, still on the low end. I think it's reasonably fair.
So that's your recommendation.
I mean, my recommendation
Well,
Put it in.
is
probably
100.
want Shannon to participate in that too, but that's your recommendation is 100, okay?
We can put down
Your
recommendation.
special forensic training, just out of curiosity, what does that consist of?
We have to have continuing education every year.
Is that through the ICA?
Yeah. And we did, 2 of us went to Las Vegas for the International Coroner Medical Examiners Conference this year. We got scholarships.
Oh, great.
And, so that was very, good experience for us. Some interesting topics, so.
You're certainly in a position where we will want you to have the best training and best practices in your field, so.
Sure.
They make any money
The,
in Vegas?
oh, no, no.
That's up, that's between you and the IRS.
Right, right. I
So,
wish,
right.
I wish.
97% of market for you would be around 27,000, and then we'd have to adjust. So when you did the deputy coroner amount, were you basing it off a certain number of runs, or you?
I
just-
didn't set that.
So
That
what
was
would you-
before me.
Would you raise it to like 7,000?
100.
What would you? I mean, that
Oh,
line item.
on the line item. Probably, I mean, I'm trying to be fiscally responsible. I mean, I understand that.
What category is it under? On the
Yes,
list?
So,
So I was looking at the coroner here under elected officials, and then the deputy coroner
The
Hold on.
PAT or an
is
SO?
under special occupations, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
but it's part-time.
what if we do 6,500?
So, yeah, deputy part-time coroners, she has under SO,
That's the per hour.
so, yeah, but am I not understanding?
You have 5 that can go on runs.
No, I have more than that. I have 5 that do actively take calls, and I have some emergency things that we don't like to have to use. So I do have certified people that,
Okay. I think the
You
5
know.
was on the AIC report I saw under part-time. So
Okay.
you probably put down your main primary ones, probably what
Yeah.
got reported.
So Bobby, we changed the deputy coroner line item to 6,500. Deputy coroner line item. What? 6,500. Yep.
Would it still be under special occupation SO?
Yeah.
You guys, I know we're budgeting, money for you to have, to reimburse for transportation of the bodies, but you haven't spent anything this year so far?
I use fuel. I got to agree with the county EMS. If they're not busy, then we have to do it ourselves. But if they're not busy, they help us with that. If not, then we do it ourselves. I did budget less for my utilities, as you can see. You know, we weren't sure what that amount was going to be last year when we did the 10,000. So I lowered it to 9,000. I think that's high, just for the record. But I did lower that, left the rest of the things the same.
So Susan, you're talking about, make sure I'm clear, adding a deputy coroner position under SO special occupations at 6,500, where his
Oh,
recommend.
That's not what I meant at all.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. I meant on the coroner, budget line item. He has one bucket for paying his deputy coroners out of. And I was just suggesting that we might need to increase it a little bit to. cover
Just,
the-
yeah, we're not adding a
We
position.
had this
I don't
conversation.
know. I thought we weren't connecting, but I wasn't sure why.
You have to go over it 3 times.
That's okay. We're gonna get more.
It's almost lunchtime. It's understandable.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the outer rings of Saturn on most days. You guys are on the planet I'm circling.
Is there anything else your office needs that you don't currently have?
You know, I think we're doing pretty good, so.
And so your office right now, is not using the autopsy area or the.
There is no autopsy area
and
at
or
the jail.
refrigeration.
There's a cooler there, but that's not an autopsy area.
And we're not using that refrigeration area or.
We've
is that
used it
everything's-
once and twice in the last 2 years.
Really?
It leaks, it's, you know, I don't want to be like the Madison County Coroner and be in
Yeah.
trouble for
Yeah,
storing bodies where we shouldn't store them. So that's more of an emergency to the emergency. I have other places, the local funeral homes agreements with them that.
oh, I
can
mean, we
use
spent a
for-
decent amount of money to get that to be a place that was, I mean, it's supposed to be a morgue.
It's not even climate controlled. That coroner's office, I do all my office work from home because there's not air conditioning in that.
Oh.
It's not an office.
I I'm disappointed to hear that, like, and not with you, but
I mean, if you wanted to make that an autopsy suite, you're looking at a lot of money, a lot of drains, water. It's got to be climate controlled,
well,
lighting.
I mean, we allocated a lot of money to make that.
That's from ARP, right?
Yeah. 5 years ago, it was either funeral homes or the two slots at the hospital.
Mhm.
So what do we need to do to make that a space that you could actually use?
Or do we need to make it a space? It sounds like you don't need. it.
I don't think we need to. Yeah, I don't think we need to current time. Two of the three funeral homes and the third is getting a cooler. And they have prep rooms. They're are very good to work with, all three of them. If I know a certain body's going to a certain funeral home, if I'm full at the hospital, I will go to that funeral home, take my body there, because I can do my autopsy there because they are allowed, they have the facilities because they prep
Right.
bodies. So.
I guess my concern with that
able to do
is, and that it sounds like you're doing the best with the resources you have. I'm disappointed that, the money we invested in the old jail isn't getting the job done. But I mean, to me, there's a chain of custody issue here. That's what concerns me, like
With what?
the funeral homes.
The body bags are secure?
You don't see any liability there?
No.
Okay. Stacy and I worried a lot about that.
I mean, if it's a criminal case is one thing, but all the rest, no.
So you're talking about the two homicides you had
You're right,
would need special attention.
right.
Debbie, you were talking about selling the cooler. Is that what you were saying?
Right now, that would be used for a mass casualty incident. I'm not sure what we could sell it from. I forget, I think Debbie looked, I forget what we paid for it or was paid for it when they bought it. So it's one of those.
What all do we do at the old jail now?
Like
all do we do at
me?
the old jail? I mean, as far as
EMS.
different
Oh.
departments, it's EMS and coroner, is there?
And then we store records all the records permanent records that we stored in the old building, Wall Street, are now in the back part of the jail.
Is Olene still there?
Olene's still there with the EMS. Yeah, I think she's
Is
got
her
an office
air
in there.
conditioned?
I have no idea.
Surely.
I'm in the old, I would say, I'm in the old jail rec room, so there's a heater with a bird's nest in it.
Isn't that where the
and-
cooler is?
Yeah.
Can you open up the door when it's not used?
Well, maybe, I guess I could put my desk in there,
I'm just
so,
Sneaking outside the.
I mean,
box.
I use that for storage and I store my evidence there, cause I've got a locked room
Well,
in
You
there.
said your office
Uh,
wasn't air conditioned, but if you're there, it'd be hard to even put a window air, well, you'd have to knock through block wood, but it's
Yeah.
possible. But it'd take a very large window air conditioner, like 20 BTU or something.
Yeah.
That's a big space.
Just out of curiosity, which are the funeral homes you work with the most?
I'd say it's probably all equal. So I don't have anything to do with funeral homes. It's all families' choices. So I don't have any say of what funeral home people use.
So if they're gonna use a funeral, that's who you work with.
Yeah, they tell me what funeral home they want to use. If it's one of the local ones, I know all those. If not, I mean, I've had a body go to Whiteland the other day, so.
That's interesting.
Which part?
So it's mainly
All-
autopsies, we're looking at autopsies and.
Autopsies are a big
Salaries.
expense.
Salaries and possible air conditioning.
It's amazing how much that line item's gone up.
Amazing.
I mean, and that's when screams like, holy cow, deaths of despair, all these, it's scary.
The 14 ODs kind of made me fall off my chair.
It's a high number. We've been trying to do some preventive, some community outreach as they have these awareness fairs and stuff. I work with the health department and participate in some of their stuff, the Knox boxes, and just go out and educate people, on drugs are bad. You're getting bad drugs. It's not just a
Right,
here
not only are
thing.
Drugs bad, but you're getting.
Bad
Absolutely.
drugs.
Like, yeah.
Right.
You
worse than
can't,
you're thinking.
I mean,
Right.
fentanyl's in, as I understand it, everything.
Mhm.
And it's so cheap and it's,
Drugs are cheap. They are.
yeah, that's so scary. Would you attribute most of those overdoses to fentanyl?
Majority. I
Mm.
mean, we've seen some of the, emerging drugs, the bromazole, we have had 2 cases of that last year. So
What's the, but vet
That,
tranquilizer?
that's
is that
it.
what that is?
Mhm. Yeah, Narcan don't work on that.
I was
So-
at a forest border, so it is cheaper. So,
it comes over from China too.
oh yeah, China to Mexico to the United States. It's
Mhm.
5-lane highway.
Thanks for asking. More, yeah, no, answer anything I can, sure.
I'm your liaison, so I'm just curious about how things are going, so.
Yep.
So do you want?
Anybody
to
else?
Consider getting rid of your refrigeration, or do you want it there? Are you indifferent?
Do we, I mean,
When's the next mass casualty scheduled on your calendar?
right, that's the thing, just as soon as we do, we'll need it. If we don't do it, we won't need it. It's one of those, are we gonna make money, or is it better to be prepared, not have to beg the state to bring a refrigerated semi-trailer over, which they have a couple of, but, it's a nice backup. It don't cost, don't affect the utilities. We did try that. I shut it off for a couple months just to see.
Sure.
I was gonna say, right
You
now, you keep
know,
it on all the time, plugged in,
yeah.
or
Yeah,
keep it cooled all the time now, right?
yeah. So,
I personally hate to see us go backwards on that, but
I mean, I'm not sure what we paid for it. I can work with Debbie's office and we can look that up and see, and then I can try to, I don't know who would want to buy it, knowing it's had bodies in it too, I don't know what the legality of that would be. We'd have to check into that, but.
The utilities are for the whole building, right? I mean, the old.
Yeah,
jail.
we split
So
the
you have-
utilities,
I mean, you got EMS, like I said,
EMS, commissioners,
storage,
somebody else.
Olean, I mean,
Okay,
for the
so,
The
utilities.
coroner and EMS split.
yeah. Which,
So,
I mean, we don't really use, yeah.
so you're 1/5 of the square foot, but you're paying 50% of utilities, is that?
Is
Yeah.
that what it costs to keep that refrigerator on, or probably not?
No, we unplugged it and didn't change our electric bill any, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what the space downstairs is
We have
being
this
used
thing
for
called
right
new
now.
EMS lit. Maybe this
But-
50/50 should be reconsidered.
So,
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like I said, I lowered that by $1,000. I don't even think it'll take the 9,000 because we're 3,300. We're paid through July, so I think it'll be more like 7,000-ish.
you're talking about utilities.
Yeah,
Might be
utilities
more
there on
like-
the bottom.
Do you want
Why don't
us
we-
to
why don't
move
we
it
put in
down to
7,000?
7,000 or?
Why don't we-
I mean, worst case, I just gotta
Right.
come back, if we have to,
So
if we
can
get
adjust-
close, if you wanna.
Adjust utilities to 7,000 and see if that's closer for next year.
And then we probably need to make a footnote of looking at that 50/50 split.
That would be up to the commissioners.
It would
probably,
be,
how that's
but
paid.
we could recommend it, but.
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
I don't know. What did they do with the coroner's office downstairs?
No, I don't know if what's in there, I mean, if it's available, I mean, right. Oh. Well, I could
Just
move
set
my
in the
desk in
freezer.
there, I thought about that, It's a brisk 36-ish degrees in there,
This is where
So-
the council told me to sit.
Yeah.
I would open up the door and move your office right outside that door.
That's what
If you're
Bobby
paying,
or Debbie said.
if you're
yeah.
paying 50%, that would equal it out a little bit better.
Right. Thank you. Yep. Any other questions that I can answer?
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming in a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no problem.
Get out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no, any way to help.
Were there ever discussions about selling that old jail? Yeah, I was just curious if anyone discussed it. Okay. Six. Debbie's like, who would want that?
There were some,
You wouldn't convert it to anything, probably.
either Main Street or somebody in Newcastle or the store, they were asking about it a couple of years ago when they.
Oh, really?
There were people in Newcastle, but I don't remember which entity was interested. What are you, I kept asking, what are you
It
gonna
had
do with the
sewage
jail?
Problems too. I don't know if they've been fixed. I would, yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
that's above me, but we want to list her for sale.
Like a brainstorming session, what
Yeah.
to do with the old jail, what to do with the expo, what to do with all of these different buildings that we just have around.
Right.
Okay. Was that 280, 180? 280?
Oh, So we're look forward to seeing something built out there. Maybe another gas station. Is it gonna be a restaurant?
Is it really?
Oh, so it's already decided.
Okay.
Well,
I like Mexican.
Yeah.
It's good.
so we'll have,
Speaking of restaurants in the
Four.
county coming in,
Yeah.
there's going to be an Asian restaurant in Middletown.
An Asian restaurant, you said?
Yeah. Where the Corner Tavern currently is.
one going in.
Yeah, and no joke. So Middletown, population 2,200 will have a Mexican and an Asian restaurant. Amazing.
Town just has a Mexican.
I never would have believed that as a kid.
Where
but
the- yeah.
It's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
Is it on the main street too?
So the Corner Tavern is downtown across from the police station on Locust. And then the Mexican place is on 236.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying
where
to
the
attract business to
Ford
Middletown.
dealership used to be.
Yeah, a couple blocks down from there.
The dairy or something, some kind of ice cream store.
So before it was Mexican, it was a diner. Yeah, it was
Lids.
yeah, her husband. And before that, it was a diner my sister worked at that the Wagner's owned.
All right. I thought maybe you pulled the employees and they liked us better. Our ratings were gonna go up. Okay, great. Good. Okay.
When you say ratings, is this popularity pulled the employees?
I just
or-
made that joke. You missed my joke.
I told you,
It
I'm,
wasn't that funny the
I,
first time.
I'm on the outer rings and you guys are, got your feet planted on
So what did we go up?
terra
on the
firma.
competitive?
They said we will probably go up at least, which I think that takes a look to apply. Because.
This credit rating?
Revenue
S&P.
increase and the, job trend,
That's
Well,
interesting.
that's good.
so.
Do we have
We'll
to say
take
what
it.
Newcastle's what?
I'll take it.
What are we doing for lunch?
What kind of